Okay. I think I clicked all the buttons correctly. Welcome one and all to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we got a show for you tonight? Tonight we're going to be talking about manhood. What does it mean to be a man? And rather than go on and on about theories and things like that, I'm just going to ask these individuals, and that's how we're going to start. Soy Pill, what does it mean to be a man to you? When someone says
to me,
there is a good man, what does that mean?
to me is a little different because I think I'm going to be talking about it in context of society. Because for a while, being a man meant a very rigid, kind of strict set of things: being confident, being independent, being protective, being strong, being a breadwinner, being emotionless and stoic. I think this has caused stagnation in terms of emotional development, but it's also promoted a lot of good behavior, altruism, hard work ethic. It's a very mixed bag. Some of it's based in biology. Men are on average stronger, meaning that they could be protectors, meaning they would make more decisions, meaning they held more jobs, meaning they were the providers. But ultimately, I think masculinity and the concept of masculinity is kind of silly, since we let people place their entire value on whether or not they're a real man, and then shame them if they miss one of those various fluctuating definitions. So being a man is arbitrary. It's a standard that varies widely across the world, in cultures, in families, and it's ultimately just used as a tool to promote good behavior. Because people say real men don't hit women, real men don't vote Democrat. Well, real men do those things all the time. I do at least one of those things. So what does it mean to be a real man? Am I a real man because I work out? Am I a real man because I wear sunglasses inside with my shades drawn? I think we need to do away with any strict definition that at best gives someone or something for boys to strive to, and at worst promotes toxic behavior, makes men feel worthless for not meeting that definition, and etc. I think any definition that anyone else on this panel is going to give today is going to be applicable to men, women, whoever, and it doesn't have to be tied to gender. So what does it mean to be a man? Whatever the hell I want it to be. I think that everything good that I like is what it means to be a man.
Okay. Fabian Liberty, same question. When someone asks you, what's a man? What does being a man mean to you? How would you answer?
Yeah, so I think piggybacking a little bit off of Soy Pill's intro here, right? The definition that I tend to use is the socially constructed gender role that is inherent and or explains the adult human male. And so, there is an interplay both between the biology that informs it, the gender role, as well as, the social situation, the economic situation, the material conditions, the culture that you're in, et cetera. We can see that, what a man is, it's not so much to say it is arbitrary, but I think arbitrary is a word we use inappropriately. It is made by society to fit what the time is. So the real question really comes down to, it splits into two domains, right? One is, what does society expect of you as a man? And then the other is kind of like, what ought you do as an individual man? And what you ought to do as an individual man is what is within your own rational self-interest. And that is going to be different for each individual. But again, if society has certain expectations, you have to understand that you are going to have a kind of a net negative cost to your behavior if your behavior goes out of those guardrails for, what it is that other people have. And so you have to make sure that there's a reason that you're doing that. I think when we have a society that has pushed back against Christianity, pushed back against many of our kind of cultural guardrails as we've adopted egalitarianism. And I'm not saying that is good or bad, just descriptively is. And, I think Nietzsche kind of saw this coming, before most of us did, and Thus Spake Zarathustra, when, talking about the three metamorphoses. We have to be careful that we don't become stuck in the lion that kills the dragon of thou shalt, but that we are like the children that are kind of able to create our own moral frameworks and create our own goals, et cetera. And so I think we are in a crisis here. And the crisis is that we as a culture have lost all of those guardrails that help us define these gender roles and help young men kind of know what it is that they're supposed to do. Right? There's good and bad with those guardrails. The bad being obviously that it restricts behavior and limits freedom and has limited our potential and growth and progress in a lot of ways. But also, what ought a 17-year-old man do when he has all of these options, and so many of them are mired with chaos in a culture that keeps hating men more and more, in a culture that increasingly doesn't have male father figures, in a culture that doesn't have an answer to that question. And it presents a significant and unique challenge to young men today.
Okay, non-fun. And maybe I should have said this at first. Again, this is just opening salvo, gang. I want to get to the greater discussion as we go, right? So, brevity is the soul of wit. Okay, non-fun. What do you got? What does being a man mean to you?
As I believe the most modern man here, I'm still trying to figure it out. But I would kind of agree with Soy that we don't really ought to have some rigid standard of what it is to be a real man. I think being a good man really just means being a good person. Being a net value add to society. And I think men are more likely to be in certain positions, and therefore have, certain obligations with those positions. Obviously, men are more likely to be asking women out on dates. So maybe there's some obligations that we have with regards to, making sure women remain comfortable when we're flirting with them or whatever. But I don't believe I don't think it's beneficial to have an arbitrary standard of what constitutes a real man.
Interesting. Okay, well, I got a lot of thoughts too, but we'll get to them as we go. Tuneship.
Hey,
Being a man, what is it?
Yeah. Currently, the simplest way I can put it, although I think there's like a summarizable and like directive, but going purely descriptively, there are multiple definitions of what a man are. There's very little that's like core, and I think everybody senses that. They're saying, oh, I don't want it to be based in a core, but I think it's an ever-updating alternative defined in distinction to other things. It's the fallback for when other things fail. It's the thing that creates the future, but it's like mostly just like a being of immense potential and a gender that has historically defined itself by being at the forefront of actualizing that potential due to our unique opportunity to do that. So it's like a sex that and a gender and also like a principle that defines us as like different than animals, different than nature. It's a little bit complex, but we can move on from that.
Okay, Xerxes, what's a man?
I think there's probably two ways to address the question. There's what it means to be a man personally, and then there's the way the word is used. So let's address what you asked. Like, how do I
what's it mean
define
to
a man?
you to be a man? Yeah.
So to me, I would say being a man all comes down to being virtuous. The original word for man that we use as a title now was vir, the Latin word. Vir, which can be translated into hero, into man, into masculine, was the root. The root of the word of virtue all comes down to being a man, right? So the word virtue in and of itself is calling to the nature or the values that a man should extol if he's given that title. So to me, being a man is about maintaining virtue, high, strong moral character, and kind of just being that beacon in the darkness that people can look up to and follow, essentially, to me. So.
Man, you guys all have these intellectual answers, right? Simple. A man is a guy.
Adult male human. Who's going to do it?
Hold on. No, a man is a person, right? A real man. They stay, make sure that their family gets safe from the fire. They try their best to put the fire out and retreat when they're needed, right? When they can't. What a man does is he stands up for what is right.
Rick, don't you think?
What a man does, okay? A man is willing to sacrifice, to protect, and to save those things that rely upon him. It's something that I know we can intellectualize our way out of it and all we want, but the world is a better place when men act in that way, as someone who is willing and able to protect those he loves and sacrifice when necessary. And it's really that simple. What do we think? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, that kind of sounds like a more complex version of what I said. You described a hero, and again, the word
Yeah.
ver, in Latin can also be translated into hero. So I completely agree.
I just-
don't,
I don't.
Yeah, both of you just gave
I don't want to
definitions.
be a dick.
Oh, go
But
ahead.
like ver and vif are like Old English, Proto-European.
Latin.
It doesn't come from Latin. Like
Skip,
the word
skip
man
definition,
is Old
please.
English,
Yeah.
and like werewolf and like Whiffman.
well,
right?
originally
Like,
it would
that's
be
Old English.
vermin. So yeah, but so
But
so
no,
even
it
like
doesn't
where
come-
and
the
ver.
etymology of the word doesn't
um,
come from Latin. It comes from Old English.
So I'll
before the
grant it
Norman
to you.
invasion.
What difference does it make?
Well, it just doesn't have that context. I mean, it doesn't.
that's fine. I
matter,
mean,
but
but
Nah,
the
you made a
argument
mistake. You
is-
lose. You lose the debate right now.
I-
It's over.
I lose.
No, okay,
yeah, what
I think-
difference?
I'm not trying to be
I think-
Okay, one at a time, one at a time. Let's give it to Soy Pill. Let's give it to
I'll
Soy Pill.
give you the ghost.
Wick,
Yeah,
Wick
I'll give
and
it to you.
Xerxes just had two definitions that are kind of tautological, circular. Hey, being a man is doing whatever I think is good, and that's kind of what I was stating at the beginning.
Well,
It's
that was
really
the question. That's not fair. He did ask us what it meant to us personally. That was the question.
and your definition is it's whatever I think is virtuous, whatever I think is good, which is fine. That's kind of what I was saying at the beginning. It's whatever we define it to be. It's also I just noticed, but both of you said was completely not exclusive to gender. You could say the exact same thing about women. It's just kind of arbitrary, and that's kind of the whole point.
Well, then let me counter that. This is actually pretty interesting because I actually agree with you. The question then becomes, why don't we say that to women?
We should,
Why don't
and
we
we
say what
absolutely
to
should.
But
We haven't.
I agree.
Well,
But the
same
question is,
obligation.
why don't we? Right?
How
So-
about
Well,
we
so why don't we
focus
say
on
what?
men?
What are you
Again,
referencing?
I think men and women can share values. They can share virtues. There can be shared things that make both of them great that they both should strive to. But let's talk about men for today, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's at least for a little while in this debate focus on.
I got an answer
men.
for Soy Pill.
Go ahead, please.
We're two different like socio-political groups. We're treated differently. We have a different status. We're seen differently. We're categorized by other people differently. So we have to navigate that difference, even if we both should aspire to the same thing. Even if the virtues and the methodologies towards actualization are the same, the path there, the language about it, the way that we think of ourselves is still like historically situated. You're not going to be able to just say, well, a man and a woman should be the same. You kind of have to like meet the moment where it is, and then
Yeah, but how does that difference actually manifest? If you say, hey, men and women need to both be virtuous, they both need to be breadwinners. Yeah, you might say, oh, women have to overcome hurdles of sexism. They might have to work a little harder if they want to go into a STEM field. But ultimately, does that change at all what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman? We can talk about, hey, femininity might have to be...
I'm telling you that it is, and I think that you will agree with this, but they are kind of stuck on maybe thinking that in order for somebody to I think you're stuck that like there are two things being talked at once, and you think that we can, if we agree with or we disagree on one and we agree on the other, that's a problem. I would say that an identity which is rooted in gender or sex is a failure to actualize your potential as a person. And that goes for men and women. All the same, it is a component. To define it on that alone is pathetic. Nobody should be thinking of themselves as merely a male when I am defined by my distinction to females. Or similarly, you do the same thing with like the gender. That's like...
But is anybody even doing that?
That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
yeah,
Nobody's doing that. So like to
Right.
like...
Well, so like I seem to be the only one that has even a drop of conservatism in regards to this topic. Which is, it is what it is. It's fine. Like I'll hold that mantle. Right. But like there are innate biological differences.
Yes.
Now how we deal with those differences and how we value those differences, right, is going to be socially constructed. Right. But if there are inherent biological differences, that is going to inform the way that we engage with how it is that we put forward gender roles. Right. I mean, the classic example specifically, I know this is about men, right? But the classic example here being of, Well, actually, let's bring it to men, right? So one of the important roles of men that is going to be rooted in biological differences is rough and tumble play, right? Rough and tumble play with young children is something that obviously women can do, right? But it is something that isn't so much put onto us by society and gender, but is instead something that is innate to the male species, or to the male of the species. You can go across any culture and you are going to find drastic differences in the utilization of rough and tumble play with young children, which we know is very, very important for the development of children, right? And so this is a behavior that we would ascribe to men. And so the societal context of that is going to change, right? Like in one society, we might consider certain level of rough and tumble play too rough, too mean, we might even consider it abusive. And under another domain or another group, it might go the other way around. And so like we can't have a conversation about what a man ought be or what a man should be in society or what a man ought do unless we can at the very least recognize that the way that we construct these things has some element of biological differences, and that changes what it is that we value and what it is that we expect from those people. And if we go too far into gender abolition, to pure egalitarianism, we get into this kind of issue where we can't act. We're paralyzed.
Let's just ask. Is anyone here a gender abolitionist? I don't know that they are.
No, I don't think so.
They are. I could be
maybe
wrong.
in like all but the actual label, but in terms of like how we treat each other. But I guess my question then for oh my god, I forgot your name. Sorry, Fabian.
Yeah.
What intrinsic sexist or sex related characteristic is tied to a virtue that we are telling men to be? What is that intrinsically? Because I agree there are things that are tied to sex, but which of these virtues, which of these things that are exclusive to men, the sex man, are we striving towards? Because I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I don't think that there is any virtue that is exclusive to man or exclusive to woman. But I do think that the biological interplay changes the value order, right? So it's like, the individual differences are obviously going to vary, right? But we're obviously going to, expect of women to be more nurturing, right? And being nurturing is a virtue that men
well, this is where I hit the buzzer.
Inhabit.
Yeah, I have to hit the buzzer. I actually just think that men and women nurture differently. I don't even think that women are more nurturing than men. For example, think about training
Both
a child
can be true at the same time.
But I don't think they are though. I think the way that men
But I
nurture
never said
children.
that men. I never said that men were.
But what you said.
More.
Yeah, but what you said was we expect women. Yeah, but you said we expect women to be more nurturing, right? Or that women are more nurturing.
Right. That is the. I didn't say that women are more nurturing.
Mm-hmm.
I said that it's a virtue that we both can inhabit. And I agree with you that the way that we nurture can be different, right? Like men tend to nurture older young boys and mentorship, right? Whereas women,
well, even small children, actually,
smaller children. Yes, again, there's going to be a lot of overlap. We're talking about distributions here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
right? Like,
this is way more intellectual.
How about
than
this?
Maybe I want to go.
Men
Hold
have
on,
a-
stop. Let's ask Non-Fawn. Non-Fawn, you're the youngest. Do you mind if I say how old you are?
No, you can say I'm 19.
Okay. You're 19 years old. You're growing into being a man, right?
He's a baby boy. It's okay.
Yes, you're growing in things. What do you feel? In what ways do you feel society treats you as a man that is different than they would treat a woman, right? In what ways do you think society puts responsibilities on you or expectations on you that is different than they do women? Yeah.
I mean, obviously selective service, and I think that's, relatively fair. I think it's fair that we accept that men are, biologically typically going to be
I'm not
more
talking
suited
so
to
much the
being-
government. I'm talking like a person. Like if a person comes up to you on the street, right? How would they treat you different than if you had a sister the same age?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like people are. When it depends, is the person approaching me a man or a woman?
In general, we're talking
violence is the answer here, right? There's an inherent violence and expectation of reciprocation of violence in almost all things in society between men that isn't present and is shunned when dealing with women.
I on that note, I made a tweet, right, just to kind of prime the pump for the topic, asking Twitter, Twitter, what does it mean to be to you to be a man? And I got answers of various kinds, but I also had someone threaten, like, challenge me to a fight. Like, literally, they challenged me to a fight, a fist fight, right? They said I was bitch made, pussy, that I wouldn't fight them. And it's like a fucking paragraphs, right? They must have paid for Twitter because it was way beyond the character limit of why I wouldn't fight them. I would never fight them. I was too weak to fight them, etc. Right? Really, just calling me out like that. That would not happen if I was a woman. It just wouldn't.
That's true. Fair enough.
Yeah, well,
For the most part, at least.
It'd be strange. It'd be
Thank you for
strange
agreeing with me.
versus, like,
Yeah, no,
with-
that's what I'm
with
saying. I'm just
men.
trying to put it in
Yeah.
a more, a less intellectual.
I
Like,
think,
I see what you're saying, but I'm just
less
trying to dumb it
intellectual.
down for the masses, if you will, right?
Yeah, I think the truth is there's always the possibility of violence in the mind of a male, right? Our physicality is a part of what it means to be a male that just doesn't quite exist for females, right? So the reason why, like, Non-Fawn mentioned selective services is that implicit in our maleness, our existence as a male, we have the capability or the possibility of being violent or just even moving stuff around. Because being in selective services, if you get drafted, doesn't necessarily mean you have to fight. But like, as hands-on, repairing something, moving something, doing something in the military, so to speak, that is implicit because as males, right, that we're just it's in us. We're just built. Our testosterone
And
just
keep in
makes us
mind-
there's an
bigger,
inverse.
stronger,
I just
faster.
want to also,
There's an
I
inverse
just
to
want to
that, too.
also say, just because
Okay.
I see some comments, like, we're not talking about exclusivity. I'm sure you could find a woman that has challenged another woman to fight. I'm sure that happens, right?
But
we're
this is
talking
the thing with
Assume that
generalities.
everything everyone
Yeah,
says
like-
for the rest of the panel are generalizations, and that we understand that there are distributions and that outliers exist. Like, just assume
But-
that for everything
yeah.
said tonight, so we don't have to
But-
say that every sentence.
Exactly, but I think it's even important because I think the commenter, whoever is saying that, they may even be a female. They may not truly understand or grasp this, right? Because as you guys just said, it is indeed true that a woman could, threaten to fight another woman, as women do fight. But with males, it's implicit, it's built in. We know from go, since the time we were children, right? From rough and tumble play to being bullied, to being pushed in the lockers, or going into martial arts, watching movies, even reading books. We know our physicality, our ability to fight is extremely important. Like, for example, think about the Karate Kid, right? The entire thesis of the film, right, is growing into manhood by learning how to protect yourself and why you should protect yourself and why you should use combat, in a defensive, protective manner, right? Like it's the battle between defense and offense, with Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do, just in that nature. But that's just one example of the films. You can go
Right, but
on and on and on.
You're talking about the like, I agree with what you're saying, but like, we have to then move on to the next step, right? And so I think the best way to look at this is from a functionalist perspective in psychology, like a Durkheimian perspective, which is that, like, when gender roles and beliefs get assigned to us and they stick around for centuries, then you kind of have to take this conservative approach, which is, well, if it sticks around for hundreds of years, then there's probably a reason it's stuck around. That doesn't mean that the reason's good or that the reason's bad, but that there's a reason it's there. And it goes beyond the innate biology of the male in being more physically dominant, but it also goes in the inverse, right? Which is that, like, no society that does not venerate the protection of the pregnant mother and children by those that do not get pregnant is a society that will last for any period of time, right? Like if your culture, 1,000 years ago didn't venerate pregnant women as something worth sacrificing male lives for, then your society died out, right? Like, without that protection, you're not going to have the population necessary to sustain yourself in competition with other things. And so I think I agree with you, all that physicality is there, but what reinforces that, right, is this concept, kind of how Wick was talking about, of like sacrifice, even though I don't necessarily agree with it, and kinship theory, etc., right? That like, what reinforces it is that there's a reason that behavior needs to be brought forward to another
But
degree.
I
is
slightly
kind of
disagree with you. That's the reason why I slightly disagree with you is because we're highlighting the possibility of pregnancy with a female as a virtue, so to speak. But when in the example I use with the Karate Kid, right? Daniel isn't protecting a woman; he's protecting himself. And Wick wouldn't be
I
protecting
agree
a
that they're not
woman. He
directly
would be
linked.
protecting
I'm
himself.
talking about the
you know?
greater social concept
But
of like.
but that's what I'm
valuing these
saying.
things.
But what I think is it goes even beyond just simply the
Okay, just
you
for
would say the
future reference,
prioritization of females.
I want us to make this
Xerxes?
personal. I don't want us to go into
Mhm.
well in society in the in the
Mhm.
greater Western
Xerxes?
world or this culture that I want you, Tuna, I want you, Soyfield, I want you, Fabian, you personally. What do you think, right? And Tuna Chip, we're gonna give it to you. You're trying to get in.
This
I
is what
wanna
I
hear from
think.
you.
Xerxes, if you
Like-
lost a fight,
like-
you probably would not get raped, and if you were raped, it wouldn't ruin your life in the same way that it would a woman who gets impregnated and forced to
I don't
carry
think
the
that's
child of it.
true. But that's the see. I actually like that because I don't think that that's true, right? You pretend.
No, it is
that
true.
I
You're
as
not gonna,
no,
you're-
hold on.
What are you gonna
hold on.
do?
Nice
What are you gonna do
Don't
if
you
you are
respond?
bearing the
Okay, fine.
child of the enemy, and you
Of the
you don't have
enemy?
the tools to like abort?
I'll tell
Like,
you.
the
I'll
whole
tell you.
point
I'll tell
is
you what
there
you do.
is part of the biological difference means that
Mhm.
there are people who should be closer or further from combat, people who the domination of means capturing the vital resource that allows the perpetuation of a culture.
Is this what
like,
you think about
this
when
is
you
what
fight
there's a
Tuna
big,
Chip?
there's a huge
Hold
problem.
on,
There's
no,
a huge issue here.
Stop, all
Hold
of you, please. Oh my God.
But
Maybe I didn't communicate what I wanted this panel to be. Maybe I was poor. I
You brought
was
up
poor.
rape. All right,
I'm
it's
not
my turn to
done
bring
yet,
up
man.
Hitler.
I'm still
right?
gonna connect it
No,
to a
just-
personal thing.
Just real quick, like, is this what you think? Like, man, I gotta learn to fight to make like the history of the captives
exactly.
of
That's what I'm
resources-
saying.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes,
That's what I'm saying,
actually,
Wick. I'm
when
here.
I
I'm
define-
here
hey,
for it. Go ahead.
When I think about what it means to be a man, I think about potential and capacity. What am I uniquely fit to do that others in the society are not fit to do? What am I? And I have to think about what future possibilities are coming in. When somebody is going to pull a knife out against me and my fucking fiance, I'm going to step into the front of the fray, not because
Okay,
I'm
this is
like,
what I want.
oh, I have this identity as a masculine and I have to sacrifice that cuck shit. No, it's because I know that the consequences that befall her are way worse than me. And first off, I also think that
Well, you could die.
when it comes
No,
down
yeah,
to it,
way
her
worse.
being
What?
part of the fight
I'm
is
so
gonna be
confused
die.
about these
We have a new
examples. You're like,
definition.
oh,
I have a new
No,
definition.
you
I
gotta
have a
let
new
me.
definition.
Hold
This
on.
is
Let
what a
me.
man is. All right, a man is a person that watches a park bench in the snow and thinks, God, I would love to kill my enemies and bleed out
Hold
there
on.
slowly.
But
in
me
blood.
and
All right,
Tuna
that's what
Chip,
it
we gotta
means
go
to be a
back and
man.
forth for a bit. Right? Because we started from a couple of different premises, which I think are very interesting and telling. We start with the question of if I were to lose a fight and get raped, right? Would I suffer the same consequences as a female? Now, technically speaking, a female is not guaranteed to get impregnated just because she got raped once. Technically speaking, right? As such, it is impossible for me to be
Weird
impregnated if
technically,
I
but
get
okay.
raped. Right? But it's true and it's important, right? Because what you did was you completely bypassed the social ramifications of me being raped as a male, and you then bypassed the physical trauma of me being raped, right? You just went completely into hold on.
You think that men, this is
But that's what you did.
I'm not bypassing for no reason. I'm bypassing because I think
so. You have a reason. Go ahead.
there's symmetry there. You're talking about things that are symmetrical, if only in proportion, but not in their like felt characteristic. But yeah, you being raped and a woman being raped both have social consequences for both of you, both have trauma consequences for both of you, and fundamentally, fewer people want to rape you. You're less likely to get raped upon the fight. You already skipped past the first part.
do
which I'm
ad
saying
homs, Tuna.
the
Come on.
quantum
Well, you were the one that
unless you're in prison.
I'm addressing what you said, and also that's true unless you're in prison. But I'm addressing what you said. That's what you set up, and that's what we're contending with. Because I don't disagree that
trying to talk about
overwhelmingly, right?
okay.
But
ahead.
I'm addressing what you said, right?
Yeah.
So the thing I wanted to highlight on the front end is that you disregarded the humanity of the male in order to prioritize what the biological ability of the female is. And that is what you
Wrong.
did. Because you did. You said
I
that it
don't
would
think
be
that
worse for the
first off,
female if she got
that's
raped.
not disregarding the humanity. I'm not saying that I don't care when men get raped. I'm saying that the consequences are different.
Yeah, you're saying the consequences
even-
for a
even if
female
I-
are
even-
exclusive, which doesn't really matter. Like, okay,
Some of them
so
are.
It
Yes,
really
some of
doesn't.
a woman
them
can get
matter. It
a
means
woman
that
can
there
get
is a
pregnant. A man
distinction.
could get anal tears and get AIDS and die.
Yeah.
Like, you know what?
And
What
then there-
who
oh,
gives
that's a great
shit?
point,
Like,
yeah.
So can a
this
woman.
is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, why is that somehow exclusive to a man that the consequences are slightly different? Like you talked about, okay, like if a guy comes up and tries to stab me, I'm gonna step in. Why? Because the consequences might be slightly worse for a woman if she gets raped and pregnant. Okay, what if he just tries to stab both of you? It's equally bad. Like
Well, no,
you're
this is-
you're
so,
Yeah.
It
like,
wouldn't entail the
you're-
same.
you're-
but hold on.
Again,
I need
Okay,
to
one at a
highlight
time. One
one
at
thing.
a time. No,
I know.
stop,
Let
everyone.
me-
Everyone, shut up right now because
me
you're all trying
reply.
to talk at once. That both of you.
I need to highlight one thing before you continue, though, because I had 2 points. I wanted to highlight
You're
one
only
thing.
on
I'll just let it go.
12.1, gang. We got
So-
a limited amount of time tonight. Let's.
I know.
Can I respond
So-
to the direct?
so real
to the
fast?
direct imposition.
I have to lay out one thing real fast.
Oh
and
my
the one thing
God,
I'm gonna
I
lay
just
out
killed
real
myself.
fast.
I'm
I
gonna
apologize
agree.
to it, Jake. Hold on. I'm
Dude.
gonna resurrect you, bro. I'm gonna resurrect you. So
Go
listen.
ahead.
The one
You
thing
ain't
that's
got that in your
important
power.
here is that you didn't highlight one of the most important things about why you would protect your girlfriend, and that is actually your love and benevolence for her. It's not simply because you're a male that you'll jump in front of her. It's because you care about her. Now you roll your eyes, but this is extremely
No,
important.
I'm saying
Because what you're saying is the reason why I'm going to throw myself here is not because I love her and I care about her, my humanity for this woman. It is because of my role or position as a male.
Okay.
Which even then
Okay.
isn't even a counter argument
we're
to the
gonna give it to Tuna
physicality
to respond. We
of
gotta give it
males.
to Tuna to respond. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I disagree with you. Conversation, you don't just say things and make distinctions. I characterized with a very specific pointed axis that I know that there are different likelihoods for the future between me and her. I know that the consequences that befall those things happening and my ability to define myself, to prepare for those situations by trying to make it so that I am ready for conflict so that she doesn't have to be, because I know that it's going to work out better if I am. All of the planning that goes in. You have to think before the stabbing. You have to think, and you also have to think wider than the implications of this. I'm just talking about one of several different opportunities where biological difference needs to necessarily change the way that we socially structure.
I think you're both wrong.
If it's going to be
Let
an
me say why they're both
individual's
wrong.
conflict like that, it's very obvious.
Okay, let me maybe
But if it's going to be something
short-circuit
else, it can
this.
the ramifications are what made gender be the way they are.
Let me maybe just short circuit this all, and I'll just make a very simple, a very true statement. I'm trying to get to the raw stuff, gang, and we're going,
Mhm.
well, the biological
I
imperative.
mean, raw is what makes her
Okay.
pregnant, buddy.
This is the raw. Like the question entails. The question
I get what Rick
entails
is saying. Yeah,
two concepts, like what you as an individual aspire
me
to,
and my
the
girlfriend,
social
wife,
context.
or a child was attacked, and I failed to protect them, I would feel like and be less of a man.
By your
just it.
definition, yes.
So hold on, like so I think we're missing the kind of the thing here, right? And the problem is that we're trying to individuate all of these separate concepts of what a man is instead of recognizing that they're all connected, right? So Tuna Chip is correct, and Xerxes, you're both kind of hitting on two correct things, and I think that there's a bridge here, and that might be like where the miscommunication is, which is Xerxes, you're like, hey, nobody's thinking in the moment like this like rational step-by-step list of things. What I think Tuna Chip, and correct me if I'm wrong, is trying to say is that if we think about situations like that, and we can descriptively say that genders are affected differently, then we can extrapolate from that why it is that society has these expectations on us and why it is that we grow up with these expectations. It is the corpus of human history where women
I'm
are
more
vulnerable,
capable of
where
protecting
women
them than they are. That's it.
But see, this
That's
is what
it.
I
No,
don't.
no,
I
stop,
don't
stop, stop.
disagree with
That's
that.
it. It's not a
But that's
societal
not true.
expectation. I am
Yeah,
better.
but that's
I
just
promise
that's
you,
just
everyone
false.
I have ever dated, I was the one that was better able to protect
Yeah.
Right.
in that
But that's-
situation.
but that's
Every
not
single
why
goddamn time.
you
before
do
you're
it.
in,
But that's
before
but
you're
that's
in
not
that relationship.
But that-
society
you're right.
has
That is
Yeah.
why I do it.
But
I
though.
don't think that we're
If I
But
knew
there's
that
also
they
a-
had a
there's
better
a bigger
chance, I'd
problem
let
here.
You're
them
being
do it.
silly. You're being silly.
It's not
let
silly.
Me bridge
It's
this gap.
that's just
You
it.
are being silly. Let me bridge this for you, Wick. Right? Like I recognize that yes, in the overwhelming majority of the time, unless you're dating Ronda Rousey, right? Like you're going to be more capable. And so there's a certain element where you go, well, if I'm more capable, then like I ought to be the one that steps up. But why is it that society ingrains the male with the concept of sacrifice? Society ingrains the male.
This is what I was talking about before. Men
concepts,
have more of that
and it's-
physicality, so that's what it used to be. But the fact that we're talking about these like stabbing, raping
Right, but they're
situations is
all
ridiculous
connected.
because this
It's
is
not
not what
one
happens to people on a
case.
day-to-day basis. Like, yeah, sure,
He's right.
in a very specific scenario,
What?
a man might be a better a defender of a woman. But yeah, like Tuna, how many times have you had to defend your fiance from a stabbing? How many times have you had to stop her from getting raped? Like, this is so ridiculous if we're talking about what does a man do in society? Yeah, sure,
That's
we're
not-
probably
that-
on average
that's not
stronger.
how
You
society
are
works.
missing
No,
the
but
point.
so
we
has
as
a greater but
we as a society obsess over mass shootings, but mass shootings are an infinitesimally small amount of shootings.
But
that
Soy
occur
has
in
a point.
America. But what we have to understand is that culture is shaped by the extremes. And so if we're talking about cultural expectations and gender roles, I agree with you that the day-to-day interactions of the male are not going to be sacrificing himself to like stop the bullet. But it is also, we have to recognize that those extremes are the things that affect culture to such a degree. And so they have more power in shaping gender roles and in shaping.
And
how
I
we
also,
act.
But I want to
would also,
reinforce.
if I may, I would also disagree with Soy Pill here that
What?
it is something we do on a regular basis. I walk a woman home when it's dark. I walk on the side of the sidewalk that's closer to danger, right? Because again, this is something that even in the mannerisms even in the mannerisms of how we interact day to day life, men, right, tend to, right, put themselves in positions where they can be protectors, and they act as such, and they should act as such. And I'm saying that this should happen. They should act as such so that they protect those that are weaker than them, and that
Sure,
again, just
but-
because of biology,
Let me
just tends to
reinforce
be,
Soy's point,
right?
because Soy made a great point. I want to reinforce it because he made a great point, right?
Let him speak.
Because one thing that we kind of skipped over, right? And I know we're not supposed to talk about, the other half of our species just yet, but I do think this is important because on the day-to-day, and even, you know what, not just quite yet, let's also talk about between males as well. It is very, very easy to take away the man card, right? So to Soy's point, right? When we think of or when we take away, what does it mean to be a man from another man? Oftentimes it's because he might act like in an effeminate way, in a girly way, in a weak way even, right? If he is showing his emotion or if he's being vulnerable at that point in time. There's a lot of ladies that will definitely yoink the man card if you're not providing for them, if you're not giving them the money that they ask for. They'll say you're not a man, and they'll use it. Hold on, there's that. You basically they'll use the title of man, or they'll take away the title of man in order to manipulate you to get you to work in the way they want you to work. So while you guys are indeed talking about why do we have this concept of protector because we're more capable and stronger, to Soy's point, that's not when people comment and talk about it. It's when they want to manipulate you. It's when they want to use you. It's when they want to take something from you. Then they challenge whether or not you are or not a man. This happens between guys and girls. It's just society in general.
Yeah,
But that'd be fair to say, Soy.
Like the concept,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The concept is just used to enforce the behavior we want to happen, and some of it, like I said, yeah, we're deemed as protectors in society because we're on average stronger. But Wick, come on, like, yeah, sure, you're walking home a lot, you're being that protector, you're standing on the side of danger, you're probably like, oh, like let me look out, make sure there's no one coming into the room that might hurt this person. But are you really getting in a freaking knife fight every day? Are you like you're just beating people off of you, the woman you're walking home? Like, yeah, this is like.
Even if he's not getting
but that's deterrent, right? My presence
probably
makes him safe.
Yeah, don't we think it's probably a value add to society to have some expectation that men who are generally more capable of defending people are typically are
I agree. I agree to whatever you're about
I would
to
say yes.
Just take the word man out. Just whoever's more capable.
No,
That's
you're
why I'm going to
missing-
suggest
you're
my
not-
fiance
I
owns a
agree,
freaking
but
handgun. You know,
I mean,
like,
I agree.
okay.
I would entail the same obligation to a more, capable woman walking home with another woman. But I'm just saying, generally, men are going to be more.
yeah. If you want to
capable
talk about
than
how
women.
because men are on average are stronger, it should be virtuous and encouraged for the people that are stronger, which are going to be men on average, to defend people that are weaker than them. That's 100%. And I think that's actually a really good point. Let's talk about, okay, there are some things that are sexually innate with people. Okay, men are on average stronger. Let's encourage people to defend people who can't help themselves. That's great. But that's not exclusive to men. It's kind of weird to call it like a masculine thing when a female could do it just as well.
It's not weird unless you're convinced
weird
that masculinity needs to be defined as this thing that is inherently always 100% without exception. It can't be 50% plus. It can't like, if you don't care about probability, if you don't care about tendency, if you don't care about principles that lead towards best outcomes when abstracted from, then yeah, you can be like obsessed with this like letter of the law thing, but like
women do masculine shit, men do feminine shit, and it's not always bad.
Yeah, we all know that. But also fundamentally, like
look
what
at Tom
happens if
Holland,
there aren't enough
right?
men? If there aren't enough
just
men
went viral
who are like
dancing,
going
you
against
know, like
their self-interest,
just went viral dancing, you know, as Rihanna, right? And like was celebrated for it, right? Because he was competent and because he's embodying all these other masculine traits. But what he's doing is the most feminine shit you could ever do, right?
So then he was probably equally
Rihanna
ridiculed as
to
well.
Umbrella. Right,
from
but
one capacity,
for
yeah.
sure. But but a lot of other people were praising him for that.
Well, let's talk
And
about
so
that.
you
Hold
have
on,
to think
stop,
about how
stop.
subversive.
Oh my God, I hate you all. My hatred level for every single one of you is rising as we
Can
go.
I try finish
Masculine.
finish my point?
You can finish your point.
I'm just saying,
just straight up steamrolled you. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's just I got to remember what I'm trying to, because I also think that there's a bridge, because me and Fabian are pretty much on the same side of this, with maybe like a slight leaning of difference. But it's like, what I'm saying is not necessarily at the knife fight. I'm not talking, and I don't think that, and when you say Wick he's walking, Wick's trying to say that his presence, but there's also
Are you holding a box
the
cutter right now?
presence of men inside of society and like what men are in a society changes the lives of women. If there aren't enough men who are going to step in and intervene when another man tries to take advantage of his natural, not gifted by anything other than just pure chance advantage over women, then you get cultures that are full of gang rapes. You get cultures that are full of pickpockets. You need to have a culture that defines men and thinks of men and tries its best to create men.
The ability.
No, I
kinda
completely
sounds
disagree.
like-
You're trying to make
I'm
this
not done.
exclusively. This is
Let me
ridiculous.
finish.
What he's trying to do is
I'm
reinforce
kind of
virtue.
scared. I want to let you
Can I
finish. You're
finish my
holding a knife.
sentence?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, don't be a coward. It's a fucking box knife, and
I'm
it's through the
gonna
internet.
be honest with you,
Amen.
Tuna Chip. Tuna Chip, it kind of sounds like you're saying men need to be virtuous.
It's not that men need to be virtuous.
If you're saying that,
just
that
need to
men
do good
need
things.
Well,
that I think
okay,
are
if
good
he
in
doesn't
society.
finish, we'll never finish.
Say my sentence.
Okay,
he's not
this
gonna
is on me. I recruited this panel. This is my fault. I'm gonna, as a man, you should take responsibility for your actions. You're all yappers, okay? Every single goddamn one of you.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's not that men need to be
Not non-fun.
virtuous. It's that
Non-fun's been
society wants men to be virtuous. It's in society. It's in women's best interest. So as they have their thumb on the fucking scale to define what a man is, just like everybody else does, they are going to enforce it, just like the state wants people that are patriotic, yada yada yada. It's not that it's good for men or definitive of men. It's just like that's what's going to make for a better culture. So if you have interest beyond just yourself as an individual, it's not what's the best way to be a man to me. There's also like, what do other people want of me? And you're going to be
Yes, it's
looked.
connected.
I don't think that's.
And that
virtue,
sounds
man.
like being virtuous.
I'm holding a
Or
weapon
me.
now. It's my turn to talk. Okay, so I have a gun. I'm the most manly on the panel, and what you're saying could just as easily be justified to promote a religion or any other stupid ideology. I'm not saying what you're saying is stupid, but the justification is ridiculous. Like, oh well, it makes men do better things, therefore we should promote it and make it exclusive to men. Like, why? Okay, well, why don't we just have a religion that just tells everyone to do good things and have that be state mandated? Like, this is stupid. Like, okay, yeah, sure. Telling men not to protect younger women makes them less likely to do gang rape and pickpocket, I guess. But like,
it's not telling them. It's not telling them. It's producing an identity and encouraging structures that make it so that people feel affirmed in an identity that doesn't do that. You can't just tell
there's a
men
word
not
for
to rape.
that.
I mean, a gun is a
word.
great way. And
What
this is the
word
thing
would that be?
comes up.
Oh,
A gun
geez.
is a great way to make it so that the difference between men and women is less important. That's one of the great, the great equalizer, as it gets called. And it's very important towards history. It's one of the main reasons that conversations like this have any substance at all.
But then, can't we? But then isn't Soy making a greater point then? Like the moment you give the ghost that a gun is a great equalizer, right? And any woman can just grab a firearm. Why then we males should we be responsible for them at all? Once it's been equalized and they can use deadly force,
Because they
why
don't
is there
always
still
have
the
an
title of
equalizer.
male?
Okay.
Yeah, you don't
So-
want
Force
everybody
multiplier.
having
So
a gun.
to Soy's point, right? I think there's something that needs to be considered because there's something about being a male, right? There's something about being born as a male where there is a title, there are expectations that are put upon you, right? And Soy is challenging that, which I think is interesting.
Does anything
Now I'll
get-
challenge
okay,
Soy.
Hold on,
and say,
stop.
I
Okay,
do
because I
think
want to
some
go.
men
I want to go a
deserve
direction
that.
with this, and it's my show. I'm going to go the direction I want to go. Is it wrong? Is it bad? Is there something immoral or negative about men, right? Males, if you want to call them that, men being the protectors in a society. I
would say no. And that's what I wanted to challenge. So I would still challenge Soy because I think that words and titles are just tools. Language is just a tool to
Let me
define
ask
something.
Non-Fun.
So-
Non-Fun, do you feel, right? Non-Fun, because you're the only good one here. You're going to get rewarded, okay? Non-Fun, do you feel that put upon that society expects you to protect others? Do you feel like that's a negative? Be honest. Just
I
give us
don't,
what
I
you
don't think it's a negative as a general principle. I weigh 110
You,
pounds, so
personally,
most people do not expect me to protect women. So me personally, I don't feel like there's much responsibility placed on me from society. Obviously, I am in selective service, but I also don't think I don't think it's a bad thing to entail some expectations upon men because I do think it's an overall.
What would you
value
say
add
would
to
be a good
society
expectation on men overall?
that we are generally responsible for protecting women
Okay.
from.
What other
I
good
think
expectations?
I would
does
protect
society-
Non-Fun if he
I
was
would
on the
too,
street and
yeah.
someone was
Same,
attacking him,
yeah.
okay? It has nothing to do with Non-Fun's gender, of which I do not know. I'm assuming you're male. And you know what? That's fine. And I don't think that this expectation that is put on men is actually a good thing because a person like Non-Fun is now going to be called, oh, you're not a real man because you're only 110 pounds and you can't fight off a 200-pound attacker. Like, that's a ridiculous statement. I'm sure Non-Fun's a great guy. He probably does lots of great things. He's got a Joe Biden thing, so I'm assuming he's amazing. Like, it's just stupid to say, well, a man should do this, and then if you can't do this, you're not a real man. I think that's an incredibly harmful
I agree.
thing.
I think there's a lot of people who use. I think it's actually primarily men who use like the term "real man" as a as like a tool against people. But
I mean,
I mean,
No,
I
I've
feel like-
encountered
I
it more
don't know.
from
I
women.
don't know if
I'll be
I'd say
dead ass.
one gender does it more than
Yeah.
the other in this case.
Yeah.
Because I've heard women say that. I've heard men say that. I've heard a lot of people say that. But I
It's a
want to
form of
push back
social
on that a
control.
little bit.
Personally,
right?
I
This
get more
idea
social pressure
that you
from
guys
men.
are, if I may, that you guys are saying that like it's bad that people think less of Non-Fawn as a man in this role because he is less able to protect and fulfill the role that society expects of him. I don't, and maybe this is a hot take, I don't necessarily think that's bad. I think that Non-Fawn it would be better for Non-Fawn if he was more able to protect himself and others. I think that would be a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
So,
better, but are you
if I
saying
can-
that then
if I
he
can-
is worse off for not being able to do that, right? Like, are
Well,
we
he
going to
is
like
on, like by definition worse
physically,
off.
yeah, but like, are you going to
Hold on.
shame him and say he's not as much of a man as
Shame?
I
No.
am? Like, are you going to say that someone who's paraplegic isn't as much of a
But
man?
I'll tell you what,
unless they're literally
You would
losing
have to
their
if
life.
I have a
maintain that.
mission,
Like,
if I have a
but
mission
Soy
to
is right,
go
though.
in,
Literally, yes.
if I have a mission to go
Cripples
in
are
and do
less
something
human.
that requires lots of strength, I'm going to
missing
pick the
limbs.
strong person in that instance rather
Sure,
than
you can
Non-Fawn.
value strength. You can value someone who can
Yes.
protect you. That's obvious and easy. I'm not arguing against that. Like, to say anything otherwise is stupid. But I'm saying that you shouldn't say, "Oh, you're not a real man," or put some arbitrary
Well, I'm not
definition
gonna
of
say,
unless
because there
you
are
meet
more-
this exact
okay,
standard of how
And
valuable
this is the
you are to
important
me.
thing, is because there are more qualities to being a man than just this one that we've been stuck on for the last 48
annoying.
minutes.
Can
Okay?
Can I-
This is one
Yeah.
single aspect of being a man that I think matters. It does, but there are so many more that I want to talk about that Non-Fawn might be better than I am, right, at these things.
Yeah.
Um,
So I just
ahead.
want to say, like, there's a couple of things I think we should just kind of focus on here a little bit. You know, we have to recognize that when we have a gender role, right, this is a cultural expectation, right? It's socially constructed within the culture that you have about what that gender role is. And what that gender role is really saying is this is what we value as a culture, and this is what we expect of people within the culture. And so it's important to recognize a couple of things once you get in that space, is that you can't You can't have those values be in an individual moment, right? Because these gender roles are instantiated throughout our development and throughout our growth. And so if you want a society that has certain values and has certain expectations of men and women, then that has to be an ever persistent thing within your culture that isn't individuated to individual instances of you failing or succeeded so much,
Yeah,
but is a
there's a word for
constant
that.
variable. And so stop.
Yeah.
You just keep saying virtue and it's retarded.
I wonder what
Stop,
that word
stop.
is. I can only imagine
Stop.
what word
You're
are
making me
describing
visualize
here,
you
but
drowning. I'm thinking about your head underwater every time you talk.
All right.
I'm just,
I can't believe I'm
and so
saying this,
it's
but I would
so
also
sad.
defend Xerxes.
But here's the thing, right? If you recognize that you have a gender role that is imposing virtue upon people as a general category because you value certain things within that virtue, it necessitates the devaluing of those that do not represent that virtue. You cannot have one without the other. You cannot have a culture that values strength in men and then simultaneously have a culture that does not devalue weakness in men. You cannot have a culture that values mentorship, of younger men from older men within businesses or, leadership positions, and then at the same time not also gatekeep and devalue those things. You can't say, oh, we're going to get rid of the you're not a real man for these things, but we'll also somehow magically keep a culture and a society that values these good things.
Wait, why not? Why
It's not
not?
possible.
Why can't you just say, okay, this has nothing to do with what defines your gender or what role you're supposed to go in, but hey, we're going to value if you can help us. We're going to value if you can lift more things. We're going to value if you can protect people. It has nothing to do with whether or not
you don't value something, right? If you can absolutely, like, you don't actually value something at a cultural level if
unless
you
it's
also
gender
get
defined.
rid of all of. No, I'm not saying it has to be gender defined in this regard.
Well, you just said we can't say throw out the real man, but not value the things that they have.
I'll give
So
you a
it sounds like we're
very
saying
simple example
Okay.
here. Okay,
Can I give
very
a shot
simple.
at
Then
this?
how
Right
do
at
men
me.
grow up?
Okay, so I value $20. I value it. I would want to keep it. I think $20 is great, and I want to fight to have it. Right, $20.
There's a man
is
on
great,
that.
And if you want to,
I see Andrew Jackson.
give me some super chats for
Who hated the
$20. I would
banks.
value you. But you know what? I value $100 more than that. That doesn't mean I don't value $20.
Yeah,
It
and
means
if you
that I
had
value
$20
$100 more.
and $100, and you were going to use
that's
these to
a good point.
It's
defend yourself
simple.
on the street,
It's
they would be
easy.
equally
We don't
fucking
mean
useless.
to fucking
So-
do this obfuscation shit that is driving me mad.
Soy pill.
Right.
Okay.
What's up?
But that
Um,
means you're going to choose the $100 over the $20.
Yes, but that doesn't
So
make
can
the $20 any less valuable than
Yeah,
$20.
so-
It
It
still means
literally
I want
does.
it.
But can I?
It's inherently less
can I cut in?
valuable.
You're missing maybe a core component that like bridges this, which is that people are not born men. They're not born adult
Yeah,
men.
it's
They're
a
not
title.
born fully formed. They have potential. When they are a child, it is important to cultivate certain aspects based on the probability of return. You're not going to have a culture that is constantly trying to turn women into men and men into women. And I'm not trying to make some trans point here. I'm saying if you tried to make a hypothetical culture that just switched the roles, it would be less efficient because you would have you'd be running against the fucking wind. There are reasons that these are working. They're more efficient. They work better over time. They're certainly going to match people psychologically on a higher rate of return. With the rough and tumble play as a classic example. Rough and tumble play also great for women because males, more powerful, need to know how much force they can exert and in a safe domain.
But I'll be honest with you,
Women,
Chip.
they
We're
can
training
I don't
men
think we
to
disagree.
fight
somebody,
women.
and it's much less likely to do the same
No,
damage.
actually,
on
we're
it.
training men to not hurt.
But I don't think we would disagree. But I kind of want to frame a scenario utilizing non-fun. This might be rude. I apologize in advance, right? But there's a point that was being made, and you made this point where you say that other men say that you're not a real man, or they use that against you because I think you say you weigh like 110 pounds. And Wick made a point where he was saying that you are less capable of defending yourself at 110. And Soy made a point that it would be ridiculous to have the expectation that you would defend anyone at 110. I actually agree with all of this. What I find interesting is how I would split the difference between addressing that. And I think that this is kind of the core of what maybe Wick is saying about what it means to be a man to me, or what it would mean to all of us. Because from my point of view, if I see a man who is weak, my first instinct is to protect him. And then my second would be to train him so he can protect himself later. So I would try to help you. I would never be like, well, you suck. I would be like, okay, well, let's try to figure out, what are you good at? I'd even try to get you into, combat arts, martial arts, all that different stuff, workout plan. In my mind, helping you in the immediate would be coming to your defense, but helping you in the long term would be giving out a plan or telling you my experiences, right? And that's how I would nurture you,
to
right?
help you value.
And so
It's very
like
nice of you,
society
Xerxes.
values
And so-
strength.
I would also say with
Mhm.
virtuous.
So
Yeah,
now
but-
the reason why I'm framing all of this, and I'll wrap it up with this, and the reason why I'm framing all of this is because the difference between how I came about it, right, is nurturing, right? It's kindness. But the way other men came about it, by disregarding your masculinity, by saying you're not a real man, is in a way like violent, right? It's it's aggressive, and it doesn't really help with anything. The point that I'm trying to get across, right, is that it is important to have that physicality and that strength, but how you go about developing it is, I think, the core of what it means to be a man. And right, and
using
that's
it,
why I
yes.
refer to virtue, and that's why I talk about it so much.
Hold on,
You know
if
what
I
I'm
may,
saying?
because this is important. Being strong doesn't make you a man. It's how you use that strength. That's what
Exactly,
makes
right?
you a man. Being
Yeah, and that's what we're supposed to
smart
talk about. Yeah,
doesn't make you a man. It's how you use that education that you have that makes you a man. These qualities that we have isn't what makes us man. It's not what defines or should define manhood. And to the extent that it does, it is, as they say, and I don't want to use this phrase, but I will, toxic, right? It is toxic. What we need to do, and what men need to do, what should define a man, are the positive utilizations of the characteristics that we teach ourselves to develop. Let me just ask a simple question here. You could just raise your hands if you agree, okay? Who here thinks that men, would be better off if they were more educated? Raise your hand. Okay. Who thinks a man would be better off if they were more physically fit? Raise your hand. Who thinks a man would be better off if he had more resources, was more wealthy? Okay, so these are values, right, that we can instill in how to use and become these things while using those things that we gain in a way that benefits society. That's what it means to be a man. We go through all these like intellectual rigor and things like that, and that's fine, but at the core, it's really those three things, in my opinion. Education, that's combined with intelligence, right? There's a relation there, right? Strength and protection, right? And how they're related, and wealth, resources, and using it to the benefit of those around you. Those three things. It's really simple.
Okay, I have an issue
Go
with what
ahead.
Tuna Chip said, because the implication that we must keep doing these male enforced gender roles, because if we were for some reason to arbitrarily switch and start telling all women that they're strong and they need to protect, and then tell men that they're feminine and they need to nurture, that it wouldn't work as well is true, but also just a ridiculous hypothetical that is based on this weird like utilitarian thing. I'm not saying that it's not working in terms of, hey, we're telling stronger people to do stuff with their strength that makes sense. I'm just saying that we don't need to tell them that it's only because they're man that they are strong and they should do this. So it's this kind of weird like utilitarian argument that I just really don't agree with at all.
Hold on.
So I
saying
feel,
that it's
Phil,
it's good that a
can I
man
have-
is strong, doesn't it take anything away? Like I'm seeing this in chat, so this isn't just you, Soy Pill. So I apologize if I'm putting too much on you here, but I keep seeing this all the time. Like, well,
I can
women
lift
could be
it, it's
this
fine.
too. Women could be that too. Women should do this too. Okay, I don't care. We're talking about women next week. Tune in. We can discuss that with them. We're talking about men, okay?
The
And if we
internet's
keep doing this
inability to
fucking
understand the
game,
standard distribution.
I
is
wanna
hilarious.
talk
this
about
fucking
women.
game where we compare, right? Like, well, what about women? We're not. Shut up about women.
If we're
I
talking about things
care.
exclusive to men, we have to talk about
Phil,
women. Rick. They're part of the
it's
conversation.
not you're.
But I
you're
think
the
sometimes,
one bringing
yeah, but-
exclusivity. You're the one bringing exclusivity.
Well,
no
no,
one
women
here-
do it too. No, women do
No
it too.
one's here saying that shit.
Like women, hold on. But that,
Oh my
but
God.
even if no one here is saying that shit, it is the case that there is something about being man where we are given the title man, and there's something about being a man where we take away the title man, and women do it all of the time.
Yeah, it's
So
an
we
erotic
can't talk about
attachment to
women.
certain expectations and roles. When
Mhm.
you feel bad because someone calls you a bitch or a FAG or somebody calls you anything that's supposed to challenge
can't
your
say that
masculinity,
word.
No, we cannot say that
maybe
word on
you
Twitch.
feel
We
I
are
didn't realize you
when
could say
they
that
do.
word. Go ahead.
The whole point of these things that are meant to like hold, because it's been mentioned a couple of times, this idea of social control by way of removing the affirmation of the identity. The whole point there is that somebody has a personal relationship with that thing. You don't know what it is exactly, but you remove it because you know that the person has it. So the fact that we know that almost every man that identifies as such, you know, there's a reason they identify with it. They think that there's something there. They think it has some kind of value. It's been defined to them by their life and the people around them. They see a person removing that identity or deaffirming it as like some form of you know, fighting words. That's the reason that it's there. You're trying to just like fucking rile somebody up. But it doesn't mean that there is a universal objective thing that someone is trying to say to you. They are saying, I want you to be upset. That's what they're really saying. I don't like you. I want to get on your nerves. I want to
It's like
get
calling a
into
woman
conflict.
fat.
It's like someone calling
It's
someone
based,
fat.
It's
No, I
based in
disagree.
some
It's more
level of
complex than
the
that.
distinction of your lack of virtue, you know, compared to the gender role, right? But in that moment, in that individual instance, yeah.
It's just to start a fight. It's just to like rile you up. So like I don't think
it's
they
it's
might
to
have
enforce
thoughts
a
that are involved
behavior,
in it.
right? It's
They
to
might
tell
have
someone
thoughts.
how
They
to
might think,
act.
I'm going to
Yeah.
rile this guy up because I think only men who weigh more than 110 pounds should be alive. Like they might be they might have their own
No,
personal
I completely
thing
disagree.
motivating
This is
them.
not
No,
to
it's-
start a
it's
fight.
both.
It's to enforce
Communicate.
something
Soy pill.
specifically.
Soy pill, you're right. It's
Mhm.
again, this is the problem with not recognizing that individual circumstances are connected to the greater social context and vice versa, right? You're both correct, right? In the individual instance that the person challenges your masculinity, more often than not, it's not actually to enforce a behavior, it's to shame you, it's to try and
Let me
find a
do
way
two
to
things at the
get
same
under your
time.
skin, right? Exactly, it's both, right? And Soy pill, you're also correct that the greater context of why these insults work, why that insult affects that person in that way, is because they grow up in a culture that has those expectations, right? So the individual usage has to be encapsulated within the greater social context and of the
Right,
gender
but I'm
roles
saying that
and
the
how they
individual
exist.
uses is more often than not to enforce that behavior. Like, yeah, sometimes it's like, oh, you're a little bitch, you're a weak little man, but most of the time it's, hey, you're fucking weak. Go to the gym, man up, stop crying, man up, go get a job, man up, go provide for me. This is almost primarily used as a
Maybe.
tool to enforce a behavior.
Maybe I
Well,
don't
they
have
know
I don't
who
have a
you
good
are.
data on it, but I would say that most of the time I would agree with Tuna Chip. But maybe you're right, right? Like I would think more often than not when someone's calling you, you know, the F slur, they're not actually trying to change
And
your
that's
behavior.
yeah,
so much
sure. In that
as-
example, for sure, yeah.
they're more often than not just trying to rile you up. But it is within that context of the gender role. You know, shifting only because Wick has begged us to do so often.
I
into
do
a
have
more
something on
individual
this
circumstance,
specifically, though.
right?
I do have something on
Oh,
this
goddamn.
specifically,
Well,
though.
I was
he
gonna
wants to
sh- I
move
was gonna
on.
sh-
When
okay,
he
fine.
wants to stay. He wants
Fine.
to
Hold on.
stay.
Let
Wick
me
is
just
the
say this.
moderator.
It's a simple question. It's a simple question. You guys got to respond because I think there are instances where we'd all agree that someone who is male isn't a real man. We would all agree with that. They're not. You're not. a real
I would
man.
literally not agree with that.
So,
I would
dude,
specifically
hold on.
he's maintaining,
Dude
man.
Wait to
did
prison, soy pill.
beats the shit out of his
Yeah, no, I
wife,
agree.
knocks her up, then leaves her, doesn't pay child support, lets her suffer. You think that's a real man?
I think that's a man because he's a man, right?
He's
It has
a
nothing
male.
to do with some arbitrary
Autism.
gender role, right?
It's the
It's
only
ridiculous.
analogy possible here. Is
But you would say
attachment to
morally.
the most banal take on conversation that could possibly exist.
But with questions,
Literally,
I was gonna
Lord.
say, why are you
But
more
Soy,
threatening
Talking
without
to
the
a
knife? now?
bug.
but so hold on. So, but you would say that an individual who does that, if a male was to assault his wife and then abandon her and his children, you would say that that's morally repugnant, right? You would
Yeah,
maintain
obviously. Yeah,
that
that's what I'm
not a
saying.
way a
Is the
person
reason
to-
you say
okay.
that's not a real man is because we think that's bad, and we're like, oh, you shouldn't do that.
And that's
Meanwhile,
good that
you
we
know,
think
how many
that's bad,
millions of
and
fucking
that's good
people
that we
worship
enforce
Andrew
this
Tate,
behavior,
a sex
and that's-
trafficking male, beater, wife beater guy? They say,
hold
oh,
on.
he's a real
So
man.
let me ask
right?
you a
It's
question.
just
So
a-
then- but I got a
so
question. No,
there's
let
a
me
difference-
ISO for
hold
a
on,
second.
there's
Hold
a
on.
difference-
Hold on.
there's
I have to ask you a
difference
question.
between Man
Hold on.
and real man.
But that's exactly.
That's,
But hold on.
that's the thing here, right?
That's
Like
the problem. That's what we
man-
have to ask. Hold on.
Okay.
That's what we have to clarify with Soy first. Because Soy, would you see any utility
We don't need
in
his
a
clarification, we can
standard?
just
No, we
explain.
do. I can
He
just talk to
knows.
him
We
because he
He knows.
disagrees. I
We've
need
had
to
this
convince him.
conversation 3 times, Xerxes.
So-
in this conversation, we've had this statement 3
Mhm.
fucking times.
So let's
We
make it one
know.
more time.
Yeah, but you
Before
don't agree
time's
with
the
me,
charm.
so obviously you don't get it.
So, but Soy, let me ask a question. Do you think that there would be a utility to a code of conduct, so to speak, which might even be better to call chivalry, bushido, anything else? Is there a code of conduct you would accept that a male in society should operate in?
Yes,
Would you
obviously.
maintain that?
Yeah, we.
Okay,
I said
but
at the
you
very beginning,
don't
that's
like-
what
but
gender
you don't-
rules
okay.
are.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's what
So-
you said. The virtuous thing. You were agreeing with me. Yeah, you didn't need to clarify.
Exa- okay.
I
But
can't
Bill,
believe
real
I'm
quick,
saying this.
are
I
men
agree with
more
Tuna Chip.
obligated? Are
Okay.
men more obligated to some actions than women are?
People with
Yes!
more responsibility
Yes!
are more obligated, and that is sometimes men in terms of defending people because
Okay,
of
yes,
strength.
but are
Yes.
men as a group, do they have something that they're more obligated to as a group, each individual in that party, than people in the group of women do?
Especially in society
Yes,
now? Sure.
losing in
100%.
family court.
Yes, and losing in family court, apparently. I knew someone was going to bring that up.
I had to. For
Can
memes.
I hear the start of that sentence again, Soypill?
Yeah, I'm just yeah, of course. This is the society we live in. Men have gender rules exist. Just because I think they shouldn't be enforced in the way that shames people does not mean they don't exist. It is very obvious that as a whole, men do have a greater expectation, a greater responsibility for various things. Obviously, yes.
Okay, and
But if someone
you-
is beating their wife, right,
Okay.
would you say that you should enforce the gender role of the virtue that you're espousing, or would you say that you should?
Yeah, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be that gender role. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be like, oh, hey, don't shame him. Whoa, don't say he's not a real man. Whoa, because you're enforcing gender rules. Like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, yeah, if that's
Right,
the
so
way
you
you get him to
agree that-
stop,
so you
100%.
agree.
But I'm saying we
so
could
you
go
do
way
agree
past
that
that.
there's a
because-
level in which you do agree that there is a level in which a men are going to inhabit the gender role of men that is ascribed by society, and that we ought enforce.
Sure, but
that
okay,
gender
now
role.
I say, hey, you know what? Real men sex traffic. Andrew Tate, he's a real man. He's doing a great job sex trafficking all those women. Okay, now we're
Wait, didn't
enforcing
you
the
say
gender role.
wait, hold on.
So
Remember
those gender
earlier you were
roles are
saying
gonna be utility maximizing.
the
some
word
aren't.
man is a form of manipulating
okay,
people
yeah.
into doing things that you like, and now you're saying that men's have. It's what are your
This
preferences?
is a hypothetical of things that are bad. Actually, I'm saying it would be bad if
Yeah,
we
I
did
know.
this,
I'm
but
just
people
saying,
do
like-
this. Okay, yeah. So if we're all like, oh, Andrew Tate, he's a real man. He's muscular. He wears sunglasses inside like a dipshit. Like,
Right.
oh well, and he sex
But this
trafficks
is a-
women. Like,
right. So this is a distinction that you're making without recognizing that you're making the distinction. And the distinction that you're making is that insofar as the gender roles inhabit the things that I believe to be virtuous, we ought enforce said gender roles. That is not the same thing as we ought not enforce gender roles. Your previous statement that we shouldn't shame people for not adhering to gender roles is not the same thing as I don't think we should shame people for these things because I don't think that they hold the value that
if I
ought
accept
to
that
be a
we
part of
are
that
going
enforceable
to
gender role.
have gender roles forever, and we have to make them good, then yeah, I think we should enforce them, obviously. But like this is what I'm saying is like the concept of making these gendered and
Well-
telling people you're a male, you have to do this, you're a female, you have to do this is the bad thing.
I think we
but
can all
if we
agree.
have the utility of using it to make Andrew Tate stop beating people, yeah, then we should tell him he's not a real man.
I
But
think
like, what's the point?
Everyone here would agree that there are traits that the current zeitgeist in the Western Hemisphere, right, see as manliness that is bad and we should do away
Jesus
with.
Christ, global north, you fucking bigot.
Whatever.
Mm.
Okay. Anything like I don't think there's
Anglosphere, damn
anyone here that would say that the societal view of men is perfect and all virtuous. It's not. Obviously, there are things that
No, I'll
people
give you
think,
that.
Yeah, that wasn't my point.
right? But think that there are things that people think of as being manly that we should probably move away from. But my own argument here is that there is a good to having a virtuous expectation that we uphold and enforce in society, right?
It's very conservative of you,
through
Rick.
society. It's just true.
Can I check really quick?
Please.
Because this is, I think, one of the speed gaps that is a bit upsetting. Is that I think that when you say that something is what men ought to be, it's being presumed by Soypill at least, and maybe some other people. You mentioned people in the chat that means that other people should not aspire to that thing. And I'm not saying
it
that.
must
I'm
mean
saying
that
men
unless
can
you're
have-
not doing it with a gender neutral term, right? Otherwise, why
Yes,
are you saying it?
but I'm addressing men. I'm addressing men. I'm not saying this is something that's only true for men and not other people. I'm saying if I'm going to have a conversation with men, I'm addressing men. I'm saying men as a group, because I think men, we're having some difficulty as an identity. I think that the male identity is fundamentally more in crisis more often than the female identity, for some reasons we can get to in a second. So I think that men need to be addressed more directly, more frequently, because part of the nature of our place in society is that it is more volatile. It changes more frequently than it does for women.
I would argue it doesn't change at all. I would argue the same expectation. Yeah, the same expectation.
I should kill myself.
No, but I'm gonna resurrect you. You're not going anywhere. You're gonna catch the smoke, fam. I'm sorry. The same standards of expectation to provide as a male has maintained itself despite the fact that women entered the workforce, fam. The same standard of which men should protect each other.
Bank accounts.
Yeah, but that's all of like 3% of the population. That's 3% of the population. That's not even a counter argument. The real thing is, as a male, you're still expected to be a provider. You're still expected to be a protector. You're still expected to be emotionally consistent.
What is the conversation?
The conversation is that the concept of being a man is etch-a-sketch, and it is attached to these expectations. Like they don't go away anywhere, right? It's the same thing. It's never changed.
That was the worst analogy you could make.
Etch-a-sketch, and it's not changing.
Well, you're right. I'm sorry. My bad. You're right. It's engraved. How about that?
Have more utility. They have, there's a greater diversity of presentations for which men can be that is useful and valuable. Men
have greater utility.
Changes.
It's such a loaded statement, buddy. Like, hey, who gives birth to literally everyone? It's fucking women. Like, it depends on what we're fucking valuing. That's like such a ridiculous thing to say.
That's a good point, but we are talking about what it means to be a man.
Okay,
what are those
codes
of conduct?
Gang, this is a failure.
Y chromosomes, for crying out loud. Like, we experiment with males in society. That is what he's saying, right? Is that there's a variability hypothesis, right? And so because men tend to be more variable in intelligence, in height, in personality, etc., that it is more the gender role that is associated with the more variable gender genetically is more likely to change over time. Jesus Christ,
but it doesn't.
Like sociology.
But you're wrong. It doesn't. It doesn't.
You just keep saying it.
The counter argument is it's literally what you said at the top.
When you brought up
the example of the fact that you would be the one expected to protect your girlfriend, that expectation in male has never changed.
Not talking about expectation.
It's never changed.
You didn't listen. You changed words in your brain.
What word would you prefer? What word would you prefer? By all means, go ahead. Because it still didn't change. It still didn't change.
I would do it.
The role never changed.
I think I should do it. I think it's better to have a culture.
Okay.
And I'm not saying
but everyone does.
Matriarchal societies have existed, you dumb fuck. They just die out because it's dysfunctional. When you assign that role to women,
what is the counter argument?
Culture doesn't survive.
It's at war. It's not good at surviving. It's evolutionarily disbeneficial.
It's dysgenic.
Okay.
It doesn't work.
So if it's evolutionary,
Everyone. Oh my God, I'm going to go insane. The ICC is going to bring me up on charges for what I'm about to do. Okay, right? Like if you guys keep going, right? Like they're gonna start painting murals of all of you in New York City after what's going to go. There's gonna be riots, right? They're gonna have whole political discourses on this of like what did Wick do and why did he do it? Wick supremacy is going to be the FBI's most
Wick power.
Like dangerous thing that has ever existed in America. Okay, enough. We can all agree, I hope. Maybe not. Oh my God. I'm scared to even ask. Men are struggling in America.
The funny thing is, I actually disagree. Sorry, Garcia. I was thinking of the future.
Men are struggling in America right now, I think, in a way that is unique, right? I think that men lack identity. And I think that is
oh my God, run.
It's not a super meeting.
At this point, I'm just messing with you.
Let's get it all out before we start going. Right?
Go ahead.
Okay, men lack identity and they lack the ability to know how to act and how they are expected to act. Some of that
was my opening statement.
Right? I know, but I'm focusing in
but no
on
one
this
said you were
because-
wrong. No one said you were wrong.
Okay, please stop. Okay.
I'm sorry.
So,
I hate it.
what I'm trying to focus in on, right, is why that's occurring and how we can fix it. Because does anyone think it's okay that the state of men is good in America?
Yes.
Okay, tuna does.
I
Of
don't
course
know what
he
you
does.
mean by
No.
that, but
Oh, wait,
No,
I want to talk.
legitimately,
I want to
think
talk
it's
about
better
why
than
it's
people
happening.
realize. I think. Okay, so I've argued this a couple of times, but I think that the crisis of male identity is fundamental. It is creative. It is like necessary, because as we have an constantly evolving, constantly changing world, especially one that's like technologically advanced and is constantly advancing at an exponential rate, men have to constantly reinvent themselves. That is actually the thing that men are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be constantly addressing the little holes in the market, whether or not that is a financial market, whether or not that is just like the types of labor or the types of people that should exist. It's the reason we're constantly looking for new like ways of being male. This is good maleness. This is a sigma. This is an alpha. This is the reason we keep doing this is because the standards are changing. It's a thing that's supposed to be in flux. You're not supposed to have a stable identity. You're supposed to have
I
a constantly
disagree.
evolving, reiterating, fixing
About
itself,
that.
breaking itself,
disagree.
testing new things identity. That's what a man is
disagree.
supposed to be.
I think that there are look.
Stable might be
there
the
are
wrong word
things,
for that, but I get what
right?
you're saying.
There are things on the edges, right? That fair enough. There can be flux, right? There could be some flux. There could be some flexibility. I think that's fine. How men dress, for example, the fashions they wear, how they present, their mannerisms, fair enough. But when we call to what I tried to talk about in the previous segment, the core, what the foundational essences of providing, protecting, training, and sacrifice at the end of the day. I think those four kind of pillars. Without those four pillars, we are seeing what we have today, and we are seeing charlatans come in and try to fill the void that the lack of those pillars are leaving. Andrew Tate is a great example. Okay, Andrew Tate is attempting to exploit a vulnerability in our system for good and bad reasons, for virtuous and banal reasons, but banal reasons both. We've eroded the pillars of what it means to be man. Okay, and that has left us with an open wound, and we have a virus.
Wick, I
Many
can't believe I
viruses
have
leaking
to,
in.
but I'm going to disagree with you again. All
Why?
right, so there's a reason we have a crisis of masculinity. I actually kind of agree with Tuna Chip when he says it's good that they're kind of just having to rediscover themselves. But the reason that's happening is not because we've eroded pillars. The reason it's happening is, and I have this analogy, which I think Base will appreciate, because I watch some of your videos. You watch a lot of anime, right? Women have been in the Dragon Ball Z hyperbolic time chamber for like 5,000 generations.
Thank you for the raid, tomfoolery.
Right?
Appreciate you. Fine.
Right, so they are getting socialized and on the motion. They know how to dress. They know how to interact with each other. And for years and years and years and years, men filled this very exclusive, very exclusive gendered thing where I'm the provider, I'm the breadwinner, I'm the independent one, and that's all you had to do. And now all of a sudden, now women can do that too. So men don't have socialization. Men don't have outlets. Men don't have good emotional regulation. So women just have this huge advantage. And they have problems, right? Like there are problems that every woman is going to go through to strive to be a better person. But men are now generations behind on all of that. So they're struggling to find purpose when they realized, hey, the thing that everyone told me was the thing that was going to make me a man is not enough anymore.
That isn't nothing. I don't.
Well, I
don't
can
disagree.
add one thing
Hold
to
on,
that.
if I may. And I'll let you go after me. And I see you, Tune Chip, right? I don't disagree with that. That is also a factor. However, that factor also erodes those pillars, like I talked about, right? Like the ability to protect, the ability to spend resources to help, right? You no longer
but who's telling people they shouldn't do that? Who's telling people don't protect anyone? Who's telling people?
There are a
There
lot
are
of people.
some feminists.
I
There
have
are
met
feminists.
women, right? Who's okay.
I haven't.
I have met women, and Stardust has said this. Stardust says, like, if a burglar breaks in the house and you don't let me fight him, I'm going to be mad at you, right? Like, if you don't let me also get in that fight. And I think that, men should protect the person who is weaker in this situation. And I've met Stardust, and she's great, but I'm stronger than her, frankly, okay? Right?
Yeah.
Like, so...
I think that's a very niche thing, Wick. Like, how many people are saying,
there's a lot of
let
women
me
who
fight
say,
the
"Do not
burglar,
protect
let me
us."
fight the burglar. Like,
There's a lot of women who say,
think-
do
I
not
think-
protect us. There
Well,
are.
I guess a lot of
There
women are
are,
stupid,
yeah.
but not all.
There's
of
a
them.
lot, yeah. They're feminists. You know what I mean? No, to kind of add though to your point though, I'm sorry, because I think you're right. I think you laid the groundwork pretty well. The addendum to that is the fact that as a male, it is very difficult to have that relationship, even sometimes with other males, but particularly with women, to express provision, protection, and emotional regulability. Right? We're going to use that term, because a lot of those things are in relation to having relationships with women. You don't provide for other males, right? And most of and again, back to you, Tuna Chip, you highlighted that the expectation for you as a male is to protect the female. You didn't highlight it was to protect anyone, it was to protect the female. This is actually very consistent and to my point, right? So in an environment where it's difficult to enter a relationship with a woman, where you're supposed to do those things, you cannot express in and of itself what it means to be a man. So I actually do understand what you're saying. So I agree that oftentimes this is used as an emotional tool. I think where we would disagree, and for further conversation, would be, can we make it a tool for good, and can we make it a virtuous tool?
I want to get Tuna Chip in here, and Non-Fawn's been waiting forever, and I see you too, Fabian. So yeah.
Running around the circle. How do you shore that up, Soy Pill? How do you shore that up with the don't talk about men bit? Because you're saying this like men are behind women, and women are a community that have gotten ahead by saying this is what women should be. We're talking about girls. We're talking about different female identities. They've gotten to where they are. The hyperbolic pressure chamber is having an intra-gender conversation about like aspirational potential.
Just housekeeping issue. I'll be right back. Tuna, you're in charge till I'm back.
He has to shit his pants.
All right, everybody,
So,
it's slur time.
No, you can't hurt his channel like that.
What's your response?
My response to that is
Jesus.
you don't need to address men specifically. Like, yeah, I am, by saying, oh, men are behind because of this specific gendered language, we need to bring men up, but we don't exclusively need to bring men up. If we're raising children to be virtuous, to be breadwinners, to be independent, to be all these things that we used to say were masculine, if we're raising children to be emotionally intelligent, that's a good thing. And I think we should prefer to do that in a way that is not gender exclusive.
But the men are behind. So the men are behind in the same way that there's special education, and in the same way that there are, financial distributions of resources to people based on need. Do you not think that you have it inbuilt, which is that you have a theory that the gendered language is holding people back, and I kind of understand what you're saying, although I think it's for a different reason.
It's literally the reason that men are behind is because we told men, hey, if you cry, you're a little bitch, right? Don't show your emotion. Don't talk about it.
You're missing.
At the very least, it's the lack of ability to express it.
You're leaving stuff on the table. Masculinity and the conversations that males have with one another and themselves about what it means to be a man has become a cargo cult. It is mistaking result for principle. It is it is looking at what men have been and the results of their principles in previous times and assuming whatever produces that end is good. But like being a warlord is not valuable in a time of peace. Having the capacity to defend people is valuable, but you're not supposed to like be brutish and act right now. Like Wick was talking about going to college. I really hope you're not focusing on your social studies if you're in Ukraine right now. Like there are times when certain aspects of masculinity are like more important or less important to embody as both sexes. But if I'm going to have a conversation with men and I'm going to talk about the attunement to that thing, I'm going to say, stop focusing so much on this. Like a real man doesn't like step back when somebody like challenges his authority. I would say, well, a real man assesses the moment and recognizes when violence is the solution or when you get the fuck out of there. Like you have to think of these things like principle based, right?
Principle, but again, you're begging the question. Then why are you saying a real man is the thing when I say it's good, whatever I want a real man to be?
I don't say
you don't have to use it that way. You literally just
say real man because I fundamentally think that identifying by your gender is like subordinate. I think that is like that is lower than the consciousness we're capable of. I think you should be an Ubermensch. I think all human beings should be more than man. They should be acknowledging the thing that humans have that other animals don't have. They should be acknowledging the things, if you're a man by gender or sex, you should be acknowledging the things that you have that women don't have, you should be acknowledging the things that we have that like natural forces don't have. Like you have to actualize your potential.
Did he
unique
let
to
anyone
you.
else talk while I was gone?
Yeah, for sure.
He
No,
was
he's having a back and
so
forth.
about
He kept
it.
threatening everyone with the box cutter, so we all shut up.
Do you not fidget with like a knife every once in a while?
No.
No, I
Not
think
a
he's
real
just busting
man,
your
though,
chops.
man.
He's just busting your chops. He doesn't like. I'm sure
I
he
know,
doesn't
I know.
mean it.
I'm doing some let's pull the curtain. I'm doing some interplay too. But to get back on it, so Wick, if you weren't able to hear while you're away, I think you probably were. You have wireless headphones. I'm asking him how he shores up this idea of conversation. Like
Gross.
what?
He has wired headphones. I said gross.
Oh, you have wired
I
headphones?
know.
That's a failure on your quality of life.
It is what it is.
The question is like, okay, so if women are ahead and women are the type are the sex that's been having a conversation about like what it means to be a woman, and they've been having it quite intensively, why shouldn't men be having that same conversation about themselves? And you can go ahead and pick up what your response was.
Yeah, my response was just that they don't have to have that gendered exclusive talk. Like, yeah, if that's the only way we can get men back up to speed, if that's the only way we can get them to talk to each other, to tell their best friend that they love them, to do all these great things that they're not doing because they're like, that's freaking gay, bro. Like, yeah, but my thesis is that you don't need to do this as exclusively, let's focus all our resources on men. If people just raise their kids to be good, well-mannered, wide-horizoned people, you can do this without being like, oh, you're not a real guy, or hey, you need to be more womanly. It's just, hey, maybe don't be a fucking dick. Maybe tell your friend you love them. Give them a hug. Talk to your friends about your emotions. Don't bottle that shit up. You can go to the gym. You can be independent. Like, these are all things that we should just be teaching fucking everyone. And the idea that, oh, well, because men are behind, we can only exclusively focus on men to get them up to speed is just not something I think is viable.
Men and women experience the same things, or let me say it this way. The way you are treated as a man, whether it's good or bad, whether we should or should not have happened, is different than the way you're treated as a woman. And so, yes, we do need specific training, if you want to call it that, towards men to respond to the specific ways that they are treated that women generally aren't, and vice versa. That's why next week, same day, I'm going to have Erudite on, I'm going to have Julie on, I'm going to have a few others on, and women, and they're going to talk about the same topic, but with women, right? Because there are different experiences and different amounts of experience that they have that's just not the same in general, right? Like,
Yeah, I would even argue something pretty interesting is that I actually don't even think that women have this code of conduct that we're kind of brushing against to begin with. I do think that it is uniquely masculine to focus on the code of conduct and how you're supposed to operate in society and in relation particularly to women. Because like I was saying earlier, again, the ideals and expectations that as a man, and even listen to the way I say it, as a man, I'm supposed to protect, provide, and be emotionally stable is something that, again, even just the nature of this conversation, but like I've had this conversation for years on and off with just friends and internet comments and all of that. There is something to being a man, right? Or there's something about being a male where there is some code of conduct and some way to be as, right? It just kind of sounds lofty. But
do you disagree with that, Soy Pill? Right?
And that's the thing, right? And so that's, I think, what Tuna and Fabian, if I can understand, what they're trying to get Soy to get to is that reality exists. Like, we have that, right? Like, and I think earlier they were trying to explain the why we have that, but I think we can move past the fact that we do have it. Here's the thing, and this is why I peter between agreeing and disagreeing with Soy. Because when we do highlight the fact that there is some way to be a man, we do kind of lose out on the fact that as a human being, there should be a way we should operate in society. Because I'm going to be honest with you, as a male, there is a lot of expectations and a lot of codes that we're supposed to adhere to. Like, even rising to the occasion to fight is actually another one, which, by the way, Wake, is something you encountered, right, when you're on Twitter. Rising to the occasion to be ready to fight is another thing about being a male, right?
Here, and I'll tell you another difference that's going to happen. And I'm a prophet, and you guys can clip this and you can check next week. Chat, the same joke. They've been making the same joke. I've seen tons of them. Well, why don't you have any men on the men panel? Ha ha ha. They're not going to say that on the women panel. They're not.
Exactly, right? But that's the thing, right? So this exists, right? I think that there's a utility to this existing, but to what Soy Boy, if I'm correct, you can.
But another difference is,
Are you saying that
no? Hold on. Another
because
difference.
we
Another
focus on
difference.
it,
Another
when you
difference
say
is.
that,
Another difference is.
but
Another
but
difference
because
is.
we
Oh my God.
focus,
Open it
No
up.
one's going to ask you guys for your OnlyFans, and that's going to be another difference, right? So there are
Ooh,
differences.
that's where you're wrong, Wick.
Can I just
Well, now they
so
are.
Hold on,
This conversation's
hold
going
on.
in circles. It's
Hold
been
on,
going in
hold on.
circles for a while. We've been talking.
Yeah,
about
but because I think you're not addressing
you
Soy.
talk.
You're not
Because you
addressing the
talk,
core
that's
of what
why.
Soy is saying,
I'm
right?
willing to say it. I'll
And
say
at the
it.
core
It's
of
going in
what
circles
Soy
because
is
you
saying,
talk.
whatever. Whatever. Anyway, the point is, we do miss out on what it means to like just generally be pleasant in society when we're only focusing on what males
Okay.
are supposed to do.
Fabian,
I think
take it
that's pretty important.
away. Take it away.
Okay,
Fabian.
so
Now you're going to explain why we do
actually-
that.
my guy, please just listen. All right, so in regards to the question that you were trying to get answered before we kind of like kept going over the same things, right? Which is like, why is there this crisis? Like, where is this crisis coming from? And, I believe it was Soypilled who, brought up, a common like issue here, which is like women entering the labor market, women, being more successful in terms of like undergraduate degrees, women being more successful before they have children in terms of pay,
Women are the problem.
right? So like, if you and there's this gender role about provider, I agree that that's an element. I think we would be remiss if we didn't kind of talk about the elephant in the room as well, to a certain degree, which is the hypergamy that has been exacerbated in sexual relationships with young men, insofar as social media and dating apps have created a space where, for millennia, right, you had small communities that started getting bigger as civilization grew, but primarily young men would pair with even structured in society with people in a relatively small dating pool, and that this is become, like, it's like when you look at the data, it's affecting women as well. But I mean, you have something like 40% of Gen Z that are like, yeah, I haven't like been with or been in a relationship in a year, right? Which is drastically lower than millennials, which is also lower than Gen X in that same period of time. But I think there is an even bigger issue than kind of all of those things as it relates to gender roles. And what I think what's occurring is that we have defanged the cultural institutions that enforced gender roles, and yet we still have vestiges of those same gender roles at the interpersonal level. And there is a conflict that is occurring here that I think is really damaging, because gender roles give you the guardrails as a man or a woman on like how you ought act, what you ought strive for, how you ought be, these same virtues that we were, kept getting brought up, right? And at the same time, we have men who police each other, boys who police each other. You have, dads, if they are involved, who kind of instill those same vestiges of those gender roles. But we don't have like a Catholic church that's predominant in the community. We don't have a government that is like, very much, attempting to enforce these things. Instead, what we have is an academic structure, an education structure, a media structure that is, believes heavily in toxic masculinity, that believes that masculine, gender roles are problematic, and, enforces that. And so there's this divide occurring where it's almost worse than if no gender role existed, is that internally there is, the older gender roles that are present within a lot of men, and then externally there is a combat against that very thing. And so it creates this own kind of cognitive dissonance between the male's ability to act out in the world. And
Yeah,
in the
I think you're
environment
only right
and
if you
in
don't
society.
know how adjectives work, and that toxic masculinity is a completely separate thing from masculinity. And if you
God.
can't differentiate those two things, then yeah, I
Oh my
guess
You
it
know how
creates
people
cognitive
think. Do you
dissonance.
know
Well,
what
no, I
emotions
actually
are?
already
Do you know
addressed
what
this.
children
Yeah, I
are?
agree. People are stupid. Like, they don't acknowledge that
You have to
Stop!
acknowledge that they're
Shut up!
stupid and then talk to
Shut
them like they're
up!
stupid.
Shut up!
AKA,
Shut
handhold
up!
them.
All of
Fucking
you!
Christ.
I am going to commit a war crime.
Well, more than we did already address.
Stop!
that.
mask
No,
everything
you
that happened
stop
in this
too.
fucking panel.
You stop too. All of you stop.
Jesus Christ.
women can commit war crimes.
Fucking retards.
Non-fawn. Non-fawn,
Sure.
please save us.
I'm talking to fucking
What do you-
children.
Please save us what I want to know, right? And what I want to talk about. Because I think Fabian did say something good there that I wish people would have hopped on and been like, oh, that's good. We should go with that. Let's go down that thread. But instead, we're circling back. Let me get to it, right? And I'm going to give Non-Fawn first crack at this because, again, Non-Fawn, you're being so good today.
A good boy,
Gets
a
rewarded.
good man,
Gets treats.
is
Yes.
very
Good
quiet
boy.
and polite and patient.
It's virtuous.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think that Fabian is correct that the institutional structures that enforced a lot of these gender norms have been defanged. I think that's a good term for it. But I would go further than that. I think that it is become you go to, and I'll say it this way. If you want to ascribe to the traditional male gender roles, the traditional manhood, you are in many cases going to come into conflict with the existing institutions. You go to war with society in a real way. And I think that that is creating a conflict dynamic that is very unhealthy because
Could you give one example of that conflict?
Yes, I can. So for one example of that would be like, I want to be someone who is the breadwinner. I want to provide for my family, right? In many cases, you're seen as, in some cases, abusive. Like, whoa, you want to be the breadwinner? You aren't going to let a woman go and enter the workforce? You're going to force her to stay home barefoot and pregnant, which isn't what you're doing, by the way, but it's just you want to be the one who makes some money. You want
I mean, if you want to be
Well,
the
it's even worse
exclusive
than that.
breadwinner,
I mean-
that is literally what you're doing.
But
Otherwise,
it's
you're
worse
just
than
saying,
that.
I want to
Yeah,
make
but
the
you
most
shouldn't be
money,
able
which
to-
is fine,
Mhm.
and no one's going to say that's bad. So I
But
don't
again,
understand.
the worst
That's not
part to
conflicting at
that
all.
is that
It's
like
like,
it cannot be
Is your debate
expressed.
tactic just to aggressively misunderstand? It seems like
Well, as
Explain
more
it to me. I'll be
conversation.
quiet.
like that's all you're doing.
Explain it to me. Go ahead, Fabio. Explain it to
Jesus
me.
Christ.
Try
Explain
it,
it to
Fabio.
me.
So let's talk about something that's traditional role, right? Now, yes, Wick tried to go a little, I think, soft on it by saying the primary breadwinner, right? But if you were to, let's say, engage in what women now call financial abuse and say, I'm the breadwinner, I expect my wife or my partner, or whatever the fuck term you want to use, right, to stay home and cook and clean. And that means that I have expectations when I come home that these things are done because I'm fulfilling my role and you're fulfilling that role. That is something that internally a lot of men would see as positive. That growing up, they would have been raised that that's a good thing, that you are doing what is good as a man. And then at the same time, TV, academic institutions, media, the many other cultural, institutions that are telling you would say that that's abusive, that that's domineering and
Okay,
wrong.
cool. So I didn't
But
misunderstand. It sounds like
realistically-
you misunderstood me, which is, yeah, if you want to do that, that is totally fine. If a woman says, you know what, I want to sit at home and take care of my kids, and I don't want to develop a career, I just want to be nurturing, that's 100% fine.
Women
and
should
if
also
people
tell you
are
their
criticizing you,
expectations. Yes.
if people are criticizing you for locking someone into that, it's not because, oh, you're not allowed to have a housewife, you're not allowed to be the primary breadwinner. It's because if you're enforcing that on someone and saying, no, you can't go get a job.
We're discussing the fact that there is conflict in the point that I made. That
But we're
you,
not
like,
really
hopped
addressing
on
who's
one
causing
word
the
to
conflict.
aggressively misunderstand, right? Like there is a conflict between the old guard of gender roles that are still instantiated in interpersonal relationships against men and the
but who's
institutions
starting
that
the
have
conflict,
different
though?
values.
Yeah.
Oh my fucking God. It's like,
But who are the people that are actually combating male's ability to be that role?
He said multiple times. He's listed institutions that are going against it.
Okay, so it's not institutions;
It's just-
it's women. It's the
again,
ability
oh my
to
God,
be in
it's
relationships with
aggressively
women.
misunderstanding.
Because you cannot express this gender role in absence of women. This is what causes so much pain for young men and why they're so lost.
We're gonna
We
get
have
another rant where you say
connected the
literally
gender
fucking
role.
nothing and don't address the point.
It's literally fuck. I am addressing the point. We already went over this, right? It's
I'm
not just
going
this
to end
huge
my life.
institution things and people are going to be mean to you in society and someone will write a video essay. It's that on the person to person getting into a relationship to express the gender roles you're saying, for a lot of young men, it cannot be done. This is what's creating the Lost Boys, the Lost Ark that
Dude,
you guys keep on talking about.
From the beginning of this goddamn panel, explain to you Sociology 101. If
But
you
he didn't
cannot
ask. Wick
understand
never asked for you to do that.
Fucking
He didn't
difference
ask.
between interpersonal
Let me read the
relationships
super chats.
and
I'm getting paid money.
institutions, then please just fucking don't ever
Okay.
come to another
$2.
That's
discussion
not
of
what
politics
Wick
and
asked.
culture
Let me
again.
make my
But
money.
that's not what Wick asked
Kindergarten
for.
shit.
Let me
That's
make
not
my
what
money.
Wick asked
Let me
for.
get through these super chats. I gotta get to these super chats. $2 from Testicle Johnson. Me, good man, happy all time. Go PP standing up. Thank you. Zephyr Hash for $5. What I learned: being a man is the same as acting good in society, which is the same as being a good human. There's a certain way to act, and there's a reality. Thank you for $5. $10. Psychonaut. Fabian, everything you said, Xerxes has pointed out, and you and Tuna jumped down his throat. And then $2 more from Tessie Johnson. Xerxes was 100% correct on everything. Thank you for the bits on YouTube. Thank you for the gift subs. Thank you for the resubs, bonging stuff, things like that. I really appreciate you. Yeah, okay. Well, do you disagree there's a fundamental tension in some of these things between what society expects and
No,
what
there
was
actually isn't.
traditional?
There isn't. No, I'm not saying there's not a disagreement. I don't disagree, right? So, like, if someone were to say, "Hey, I just met you on a dating app. Let's go on a date. I'm dating for marriage, and by the way, my expectation is like I never want you to have a career." If you establish that right away, and they're on board and they're consenting to that, cool. All right, let's go into that expectation. Let's do it. The problem is that if you're setting out and telling people, "Hey, like, let's push this as a thing that you should be doing," and now we're locking women into these places where if anything goes wrong with their marriage, they've now spent 20 years not doing jack shit, and we also want this equality in the marriage court so they don't actually get more money when they don't have a career and don't have any jumping off point if they get divorced. That's where the financial abuse comes in. That's where people are saying, hey, don't do this. So if the whole argument from Tuna and Fabian is, hey, people are fucking stupid and we have to cater to them like the little baby drooling idiots that they are and say, hey, I just want to let you know that it's okay to want these things, just be careful. Yeah, sure.
Do you think,
great, let's do
Let me
that.
ask you this, Soy
No,
Pill.
you just
No,
can't
stop.
tell the
Let
difference
me ask
between
Soy
is
Pill
and
a
an
question.
ought.
Can I
It's
ask?
fucking,
Can I
my
ask
God.
Soy Pill
I
a
promise
question?
you I
Soy
can.
Pill, I want to go down.
You're displaying that you can't.
I want to try something. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing or a neutral thing that in our society currently we value and promote monogamy?
Generally, it's probably a good thing.
Yes, generally it's a good thing. It's a general good for society that we are monogamous in most cases, right? And we promote monogamy, we reinforce monogamy. We see cheating and having multiple spouses and multiple girlfriends or boyfriends or something. We tend to look down upon that, right? People tend to look down upon that. And that probably is a healthy thing for our society. Yes?
Yeah, if we're talking about retaining family structures
Yeah.
and raising people
Yep.
correct. Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
what's your point,
So,
though?
my point is that society can and should have and create societal expectations for how relationships go, even if there are outliers where people would consent to different things, right? So
Okay.
I wouldn't.
So if the
forbid-
expectation is, hey,
right?
let's not lock yourself out of a career for 20 years and then worst case scenario, you're fucked, I think that should probably be promoted, even though I think it's okay to have a trad wife stay-at-home person, right?
So the problem, I think, is that society, at least now, currently, and institutions have, again, framed it as you have, that you're locking women out and that they can't do this and that is an inherent negative thing. Even the way you talk about it is inherently negative. It's society has decided that this framework is inherently negative. However,
I'm not
that
saying
goes
it's
into-
inherently negative. I'm saying if we're going to start equalizing things like payouts in divorce court, which traditionally have favored women because women couldn't work after they got divorced, then yeah, we have to start talking about, well, this is no longer going to be benefiting you. And if we're going to lock you out of a job, that maybe we should go back to the way it was where it favored you in the divorce court. That's all I'm saying. It's not inherently bad.
Soy Pill, can I try something?
Please.
Okay. Pick a young boy in your life that you love and you want them to have the best possible life. Just like imagine them for a bit. I'm just gonna give them like a random.
Imagining a young boy. I don't like where this is going.
That's all coming from your brain, buddy. So if you imagine that boy and you're sitting down and you're having a man to boy conversation, and and you were trying to tell him what is in his best interest, or if you were to give him advice on how to live, and you were to take all of the things that you would give
Mm-hmm.
and put that into like a bucket
Okay.
and just think of that as like a group of principles,
Mm-hmm.
why would you not feel comfortable universalizing that as a principle that you would extend to all men?
Because I'd give the exact same conversation to my daughter or my son or whoever the fuck, because it doesn't matter.
Okay, sure. So you because you're not giving it to everybody, you feel like it's not fair to give good advice to only one of the sexes?
No, that's not what I said. I said if I'm going to give really good advice to someone I'm trying to mentor, I'm not going to exclusively gender it because I think that's harmful.
Okay,
Because if they
sure.
don't
You're being
embody a
more-
certain
I
thing,
get
like,
what he's saying. And I want to ask a question on that because I don't.
Can I follow up with the most obvious thing here though? Is that you're being more exclusive when you only give it to one person.
Yes, but he's saying he's not giving.
yeah, but I'm saying I'm going to give it to everyone, so I'm not going to do
That's
that.
not what he's saying. Chip.
He's
Mike,
saying he would give the exact
Yes.
same advice to a young girl,
a young
that he
woman as
give
they
to
would a young man. And I
don't-
think that
I don't know how.
Yeah, I think that
I don't know why you would fucking do that.
Yeah,
and
because
think
there
that
are
that makes sense.
there
but
are going to
fair
be
enough.
experiences that young men face that young women face less.
Of course. I'm not saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to tell a young man, hey, don't wear a dress when you walk around and go to the frat party. Like, obviously, I'm going to tell different people that, hey, I don't
Probably
think
good
that we
advice,
should
though.
have gender roles,
Hold on.
but gender roles exist. People treat gender differently.
I'm
and
gonna
the same
bet.
way, like,
I'm gonna bet some money here. I'm gonna bet $5. Okay, it's not a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money. Okay, I'm gonna bet $5 that you're going to if you talk about dating with a young man, you're gonna talk about it differently than you do with a young woman. You're gonna bring things up with the young man that you would with a
everything
young
that I
woman,
would say
and vice
differently is
versa.
going to be exclusively how people are going to treat them because of who they
Yeah,
are and not how they should act.
Yes. You're getting it.
Okay.
You're so close.
I promise you,
right?
you're not
so
having a
close. You're
revelation.
so close.
I just didn't know that I knew
Okay.
this.
Because, right? Because you acknowledge that society treats and people in the society are going to treat each one differently. So we
No way.
ought discuss different ways and stress different values and different things in different levels because there are different expectations and different ways they are treated, right? Absolutely, yes. So an example, like if I'm talking to a young woman about dating and things like that, I'm going to be like, you got to make sure that you cover your drink at these parties, right? You got to make sure that you what you're looking for is someone who's not going to take advantage of you. That's not going to do X, Y, and Z. Someone that's
This panel has literally just been teaching is-ought distinctions, and it's fucking, it's fucking, it's literally like, it's blowing my mind that we can't even have like a fucking adult conversation about this.
We can. I don't know why you're wigging out. I'll be honest with you. I'm a bit befuddled by it.
Because you're retarded. That's why I'm wigging out.
I guess
It's
so.
Frustratingly so.
Maybe you're the retarded person for trying to have a different conversation than the rest of us. I don't know.
Xerxes, can I?
This is true.
Okay. I've been a little
It's my
aggressive
turn to be a
here,
retard.
but like I want to address it directly. You have an ideal other that you think men should be beholden to,
Mhm.
and you're so firm on it that when you have this conversation and a person has a different ideal other or believes that instead of having an ideal other, a person should center themselves, that the conversation like falls apart because you're gonna like get into disagreements that are like rooted in that. So what we're saying is some of us are being descriptive, or all of us are sometimes talking about descriptive things, and some of us are in the same exchange being prescriptive. So like if we're going to have a conversation about what men are, men are dealing with a different set of situations than women. The bridged gap is what do we do differently because of that? Instead of looking at that at all, Soy Pill is saying this is what we ought to do, and it should not be reliant on what is now. It should be thinking about the future. It should be all these ideal things. And I think we're trying to get through to this point of instead of having this like wild aspirational prospect, you have to think about how you're going to get to the conditions where that ideal is even possible. And at least the two of us agree that the way to get there is by having an intra-sex conversation about virtue that catches men up to women, and I think that that's what we're
Okay,
trying to do.
if you are under the misconception that I think we shouldn't talk to men about how they're behind, or we shouldn't talk and we should just ignore gender, I'm abolishing all gender. Hey, don't have these conversations with men because even though they are different, it's in the same way. It's like, okay, yeah, I think we should treat everyone of the same race the same, but I'm not going to pretend like we shouldn't tell like my beautiful mixed race babies, hey, hey, people are going to treat you fucking differently. Cops are going to treat you fucking differently. Like, obviously, I don't know why you don't think I think this. I know the distinction. Yes, there is a reality of gendered things. Yes, we have to tell people certain different things because the way that they're treated is the current reality of society. I'm just saying it would be best, and you're saying this is idealistic, but I promise you, if you just give good advice to your children in a gender neutral way, you don't have to enforce that gender role. And yeah, you can acknowledge, oh, you might be treated differently because you're a woman. Oh, hey, you're less strong than the boys you're going to be around. Be a little more careful. That's fine. That just doesn't mean that you have to enforce that as a gender role, and we should try to do away with that.
Why are you
That's
talking
all
about
I'm
enforcement?
saying.
We're not
Because
talking
that's what
about
a gender role
enforcement
is.
here.
It's an enforcement of behavior and a shaming if you get away from it. That's the whole point.
Even if it isn't, explicit, he's right. Implicitly, if you're trying to date a woman and she desires you to be a provider, it is implicit in that relationship how you're supposed to act. So he has a good point there. There's some pressure applied to you.
Okay, but pressure is not enforcement. This is this like really cucked thing where you're saying,
well, if you
that
want to be with a
somebody expects
woman,
something of you, and you want something from them, that you can't merely look at the cost benefit and just say no to the arrangement and not go along with what they're doing.
Yeah, well, of course you can. Well, yeah, well, of course you can. But the problem is, if you want something, you have to adhere to the way that the world is, right? So, like, if I want to be in a relationship with a woman, I have to accept that there's no one disagreed with you. That if I want to get to X, which is to a woman, I have to behave in Y. Like no one has even begun to disagree with that. If I understand Soy, which you correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is predicating the behavior on being male makes you lose all of the other important parts about being a human. Would that be correct?
I can't believe I watched your videos going on. The fact that you're the one person who's trying to back me up here is amazing. But yeah, that is what I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. How are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you. I'm just incredulous because I agree. I just agree with like everything you say in all your videos, and right now you're at least on the same level of understanding. That yeah, obviously I'm not.
Agree, right? Like this is that.
This is horseshoe theory in action. I swear.
It is. It is.
I don't know. It might be more complex. I don't know.
I guess. Well, here's a good question.
The power of anime and friendship.
You're talking to your buddy, right? He's struggling, right? Yeah, I give him a piece of. He's like, man, I don't know what it. How do I be more of a man? What do you tell him? I'll give you an example to start us off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've a friend, right, who's been struggling in relationships and things like that, and he feels like he can't provide and things like that. You know what I tell him? I tell him like, hey man, you just need to like focus, right? Discipline, get in there, get more money. You need more money, get a better job. I don't say, well, no, you shouldn't worry.
Yeah, Wick, is your friend still struggling? Because I think I know why.
Well, I only gave him this advice last week, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
He is still struggling, right? Yeah. But hey, we haven't had a long time. But yes, absolutely, get a better job. You'll make more money. If you're having trouble because women don't like you because you don't have a job, get a job. Yes, absolutely. What would you say? Not fun. Go ahead.
I think that's fair advice for getting woman. I don't wanna just like say you need to do this in order to be like quote unquote a real man, but it's fine.
A man should have a job. Yes.
What about stay at home then? Should we not promote that?
One half of being a man is being a human, and one half is being male. And if you're only addressing one half of those with your advice, then yeah, you're fucking up. But like, yeah, a human should actualize their potential. They should provide for themselves and others in their life. They shouldn't throw away value. That's a human thing. That's the universal between the two sexes. And then there's the question of what's the highest yield? What's the most efficient return? What are principles and what are expectations you should have and know that people have of you around that pursuit? And that's the sex part.
Sure. If you, and you know what, let's build a bridge here because maybe we agree on this. If you're saying exclusively the advice that we can say, what is a real man? It's to say, hey, there's a lot of societal expectations on you. There's a lot of societal assumptions about you, and you have to make sure that you're operating the best within those in the sense that, yeah, people are going to expect you to be more dangerous, and you should account for that. You shouldn't approach people at nighttime at 3 a.m. Don't sprint at woman to go say hi. Like, yeah, this is exclusively gendered language, and that is not. We're not going to tell women not to do that because they're the ones who have to run away from us. So yeah, okay, I agree with you. But I think that's kind of belaboring the point of if we're trying to say what is a real man, I'm saying, okay, yeah, we have to acknowledge the reality of what society has placed on us in the same way we acknowledge race and the same way we acknowledge every other socially constructed thing. It's not, just because I want it to be irrelevant doesn't mean it is. I'm just saying that, we can try to move away from that. So that's it.
Sure.
So this is, I guess I have to step back in, but it's so fucking frustrating. No, I as the only person here with any fucking ounce of conservative values, I guess, I would say that no, that there is something good and functional about it. When people say that something is socially constructed, right? It's kind of one of those magic words where we take in the context of how we hear it as opposed to what it actually means, right? So like, if something is socially constructed, for example, in gender, you could go back to the 1800s and look at fashion in men's fashion. And what you're going to find is you're going to find military uniforms and things of that nature where high heels are there, right? And it's like, well, it's because women value height. They've never not valued height. They've almost always valued height with relative few exceptions in cultures throughout the world. And so so high heels were a thing. But why were high heels also there was because of like the steppe people and people that rode horses. And it became like popular fashion within military fashion that then spread out largely because of like stirrups and saddles and utilizing that type of footwear. Well, that's not really a thing anymore because we have cars. And so and fashion has reversed it, right? It is women that are wearing high heels. Yeah, that portion is socially constructed, but the foundation there is that men and women absolutely are different. And that and you're not going to have a functional society that is even in Fantasyland in the end game where where we can get rid of all gender roles that doesn't have different expectations, different aspirational goals, and different values for different genders. And you throw the baby out with the bathwater if you notice that there are certain elements of our current instantiation of gender roles that are negative, where the answer then becomes, well, then we ought get rid of gendered roles and that we just ought give these virtuous things. Like, yeah, I'm an objectivist for the most part. I agree that like man, including woman, ought act within their own rational self-interest. But part of that rational self-interest is going to be, instantiating in your children, instantiating in your community values that are going to be different for men and women because they engage with the world differently. Saying that something is socially constructed doesn't mean that it doesn't have a basis in reality. It just means that the way that it expresses itself is going to be culturally dependent upon the times, the technology, the material conditions, etc.
Okay. If you want to
be
a man,
hop on Xerxes for saying
I got
nothing, and then you just did that. But go ahead, Vic.
20-second thing. 20-second
Every
thing.
time
Okay.
I make a fucking point, like you seem incapable of.
Well,
actually
it's almost like we
addressing the point. You
disagree.
just make
Yeah.
a
No,
point.
I wanted to. Wick interrupted me, but go ahead. Vic.
No. Okay. No. 20-second point. It's real simple, and then you can fight with Fabian if you want. God, you're making me forget. No, I got it. You want to be a better man? Okay. Do 3 things. Get a job. Okay. Work out. Read books. You do those 3 things, you will feel better. You'll be more healthy, and you'll.
That's
be
just
happier.
life advice for everybody. That's like
No, that's man advice.
And wouldn't
That's
that,
gendered
wouldn't
man
that
advice.
be? But that would be Soy's point. So you do realize that, right? Right, Fabian?
yes,
His point
I,
would-
I
Talking to
absolutely
men
agree.
today.
As long as you
That's
get
why
it.
I'm saying,
Right.
I'm
As long as
saying
you know
that's
that's what
general
you're
life
saying.
advice. Yeah, like as Tunachip was trying to say earlier,
But
and as I
we
just said in my point, is that like, yes, I agree. People ought to act within their own rational self-interest. It is within your own rational self-interest to be healthier.
There's a reason
to make
I'm
more
saying
money,
this, though.
to do those things. That's not the same thing
reason
as the
I'm
gender thing.
saying this is because there are forces out there, there are people out there who say, well, men don't really need a job. Men don't really need to work out to still be a man. Men don't really need to do any of these things to be. No, you do.
Stop saying people. These are not people who are talking to you, saying these things.
Yes, I have heard people in my real life, right, say these things. Yes.
Twitter is not real life, Wick.
If you think
These are
Twitter is
Russian
not
bots.
real life, you are wrong, sir.
Dead
Twitter-
internet, buddy.
Twitter has influenced
Dead
everything
internet theory is
and
fucking real.
continues
I'm only here because of
to
Twitter. You're
influence
right.
everything that we do. It influences our political
Wait, Wick,
process.
do you work out?
It influences our economics. I run a little bit, and I do
He
some
exercises
push-ups
his
and stuff
belt.
like that. Yeah. Is that working out?
Jesus.
Are you gonna take that from him? Oh my God, Wick! I think you should fight with Tuna right now.
Oh, me and
Hey,
Tuna.
man.
Wait, Fabian, wait,
We
I want to
don't have
talk
a
to
good
Fabian because I was being mean, but unironically, like I'm not actually saying anything you just said was necessarily wrong. The stuff you're talking about, yeah, gender roles are constructed, they have value. You're probably kind of like boxing at shadows, and I'm not trying to be patronizing, but like there are a lot of leftists who'll come on and be like, well, actually, that's socially constructed. It doesn't matter. No, it absolutely matters. It probably stems from things of biology that are reality. But the problem I have with you saying that is, I guess, our fundamental disagreement is you value certain gender roles as, oh, like, yeah, this is inherent to men should do this. This is inherent to women should do this. And generally that might be true in certain cases, but I'm saying you don't need to do that. And I think society would be better if we don't try to enforce those things. That's all I'm really trying to get at. So
Okay, the people who are saying that Twitter isn't real life, if you want to know what's going to happen in real life in the next week or month, you go on Twitter and you look. And that will happen. It's prophecy.
I wouldn't say that I necessarily value these things. This is like a kind of a classic conservative, metaphor, right?
Misconception.
Which is like, the left winger, finds when you find like God damn it, a fence in the middle of the road, right? And the left winger is like, well, there's a fence in the middle of the road that's like blocking us. We ought to get rid of this fence. And the conservative goes, well, who put the fence here? Why is the fence here? Before we start knocking down fences, we should maybe try and figure out why this fence was here, because the outcome of destroying this fence might be worse than we think, right? So there's a certain conservative disposition, at least from like a Burkean kind of perspective, right? Which is that like, you have to be careful if you're going to get rid of cultural kind of ideas and things that have lasted thousands of years, because you don't actually know what the downstream effect of getting rid of those things are. We can kind of surmise that there are certain things that we've seen over time be negative, and we can pick apart at some of those things. But when you say like, oh, the very concept of like having gender roles is anathema to like a healthy society, like that is
I'm not
that
saying
is
that.
an extreme. Well, you're
obviously
How
we
are you
have
not
better
saying that?
society. Well, because obviously society is functioning and to some capacity we've gotten it better. Obviously through history, we've had gender roles that are very wildly, but there's a lot of consistencies, right? I'm not going to say, oh, like this is the downfall of society, this is what's causing us all these problems. I'm saying we've accelerated to a point where we can move past these things that I think are causing harm, where enforcing masculinity is causing harm to men, and we can kind of move away from that. Now we could go to a good place in Tuna's world where we're like, let's exclusively focus on men. I'm not saying that could is going to have necessarily negative outcomes. It could also have positive outcomes.
You said something
I'm not
there.
saying
I
it's-
want to ask
but,
something.
like,
No,
history,
stop.
like, you
I want to
can't-
ask him my goddamn question.
God damn it, dude.
Soy pill. You said that enforcing masculinity is what's destroying men. Do people agree with that?
I think
Yes
you
and
would
no.
do it just-
See, I think it's more complex than that.
But
Um,
let me at least respond to what he's saying. You're right. Like
Wick, I'm gonna remember your question because I think it's
when
very
you are
interesting. Go ahead.
right, like when you say that like that we can recognize that gender roles as an entire category are and enforcing those gender roles as opposed to having descript non-binary, whatever fucking gender neutral kind of virtues that we stress, and we can do away with this entire concept of gender roles. That is an extremely radical position, historically speaking, right? Like we have to understand that like you can't look at human history in the same way that we look at the human lifespan, right? It is relative, like like we have had relatively stable gender roles with some fluctuations throughout time in Western society up until the 1970s. And then you're like, okay, well, we've made progress in the last 50 years. We're not going to know what the downstream effects of let's say having women being a large part of the workforce, or like egalitarianism and so many of these other things, for another 100 years. Like these things these things happen over a span of multiple generations. And to say that we would be better off, I have to ask you, what evidence do you have that if we just abolished gender roles, if we could, right, and that we only taught virtue, that this would lead to a better, more prosperous society and get the desired outcomes that you prefer?
Okay, so this is like this weird appeal to we've been doing it for hundreds and hundreds of years, and there's no evidence to show that it would be good, so why are you proposing it? But I think you're misunderstanding what I'm proposing. I'm not saying, hey, let's ignore gender. I'm a gender abolitionist. There are no men, there are no women. Like, anyone can do anything. Like, obviously, there are going to be differences. Obviously, we have to acknowledge the history of it coming up to this. In the same way, I would never advocate for colorblindness, because that's just ignoring history. It's ahistorical. Like, that's not what I'm advocating for. What I'm saying is, when we enforce a gender role insofar as saying, hey, you're not a real person, you're not a real man, you're not a real woman unless you do this thing, that is bad. One, because it's arbitrary and anyone can say that about anyone, like, hey, you're not a real man unless you do this, you're not a real man unless you do this, and suddenly it's this big fucking chaotic mess where everyone's arguing on what makes the best man, even though there's clearly not a fucking solid definition for this. I'm just saying, let's not make that gendered. I'm not saying you can't have the concept of housewife.
Can you give any?
What
you only
evidence?
made one
Like,
piece, which is
okay,
that it's
my
arbitrary.
evidence is
but it's not
me
arbitrary.
and-
It's based off of the functional society and the ones that failed and the ones that succeeded throughout human history. So it's not.
Do you
an
have
arbitrary
evidence that
distinction.
a non-gendered advised culture failed? Because I don't think those exist, right? Like, it's.
I mean, we have matriarchal societies, right?
Well, that's not what I'm
gender roles are
advocating for.
different.
That's gender rules.
Okay.
We do have
Unit check,
society-
try it.
I know
Unit check,
that
try it.
No,
was
I'm
all
not
in order
saying-
to be a man.
What I am not saying, that because something has existed for 1,000 years, it is inherently good. What I am saying is that because something existed for 1,000 years, that it serves some level of function. Again, I brought up
I agree.
Durkheim. I brought up functionalism, right, as a sociological lens in which to interpret this. And so when you say we ought to do away with this thing, and then your only piece of evidence is it's arbitrary, well, it's not arbitrary.
I don't
So
know
that's
how
not
much
what he's-
anecdotes
that's what
work here, but like,
about. Yeah.
huh? What Xerxes? Well, I was just real quick, evidence-wise, like I don't have a
Ask for just
study
one
that
piece of
shows
evidence.
like if you raise people like in a non-binary way, this is somehow better. I just come from I'm in fucking Berkeley. This is the most like gender-neutral, like fucking liberal, progressive, libtard place you could ever be in, and I've seen lots and lots and lots of people not being forced into these things and operating completely fine. Society's great, unless you want to get into the weeds of like how shitty Berkeley is because libtards. But like it works here. So I think it's better. I think we shouldn't enforce these things. I think we shouldn't shame people for not meeting some arbitrary standard of what is a man. We can shame people for bad behavior.
It's
I just
not
don't think it should be
arbitrary.
gendered.
You're also
The evidence is
like, I
I
know
live in
people-
Berkeley and Berkeley's doing great, right? Like, but there's plenty of evidence to suggest that when you have more egalitarian societies, that gender
Well, can I ask a
gender
question?
disparities increase, right? We see this in nursing, we see this in software engineering, et cetera, right? Like when we look at the types.
Yeah, but I
of
think my
work
question
and
will get to the
labor-
heart of
Wait.
what
Let
Soy
Fabian
is saying.
finish. I'm actually
and so
very
this
interested.
this again highlights what I see as a conflict, which is another thing that you memed on and didn't address, which is that when you have institutions pushing one concept of gender roles and what we ought to expect, and you have interpersonal situations that are contrary to that creates a situation within young men specifically, because that's what we're talking about here, where there is cognitive dissonance between what society's expectations are from certain institutions and what the individual institutions are. So the only evidence that I can see is that when society tries to do away with gender roles and enforce egalitarianism, that individuals end up choosing more gendered ideas and concepts, and that this conflict is causing a crisis within our culture and in what men believe they ought to do, because they're getting
This is
different-
great. This is
different
great.
messages.
Actually, agree with.
$10 from Psychonaut. Brook Farm was an experiment for equality among the sexes in 1840, and it failed. Let's give it to Tuna Chip. Tuna to ICs.
Can I go after? Because I have a question.
Yeah, you've been you'll.
But
you'll
we
get your
are
turn
running
then.
out of time, so we're gonna wrap it up soon. Tuna
Yeah.
Chip, go.
You're so mad for nothing, bro.
I mean, there are people that wait and there are people that interrupt, and it's a little frustrating. I think that he has a hard job. That's why he's mad. And it's not
Me?
always the same person every single time. I'm saying every time that conflict keeps coming up. It's not a role. It's a dynamic.
Except
Anyway,
for non-fun, he's the best.
I don't. I'll disagree with you on one on the Berkeley. I don't think that Berkeley is an instance, even though people are not enforcing it, and in many instances they're counter enforcing. There's an expectation to buck gender trends in these places. It's not that they're living without the gender trends. It's that they're living inside of the context of knowing what they are, having that framework, and experimenting around with it. Like, you're not gonna if you go to a country that doesn't have a strong sense of how to distribute responsibilities amongst people. It doesn't matter if it's happening on sex. It could happen on class. It could happen on sex. It could happen on race. Different cultures throughout history, different ways. If you have it so that, and this is to Fabian's point, what we're talking about is we're looking at like friction. We're looking at forcing people and trying to incentivize people into going against the things that they're being taught early in life, and just saying, let's change it up. Let's go against. Instead of this like push against the wind, change the thing, just because sometimes you say that you're saying, oh, I just want to free up people to do the things that they want and actualize their potential. But then at the same time, you're saying, well, we're not going to have any conversations about what the maximalization of an individual based on their unique trait is with the language. We have to avoid the language. Instead, like, what are you going to do? How can you have this conversation? How can you not force? Okay, what are you going to do when you have the conversation? Are you going to say, actually, I think that STEM going out of its way to hire women when there are tons of men that want to go further and there are not nearly as many women that want to go further, that maybe the amount of resources we're wasting pushing and pushing and pushing against the wind would be better just letting people pursue their interest as they find it individually? Why is that bad as opposed to, say, good? Because that looks like what you described to me. To me,
Well,
getting
first
out
of
of
all,
people's
yeah,
way
you
just
and
letting
Fabian
them
said this. It's
do what
like,
they
should
want
we
is
be
good.
pushing people into a place where they're not naturally falling? But also, I don't know if I necessarily agree that it's like, oh, women were naturally not in STEM, and then we had to push them. I mean, in the 1970s, there were women in STEM, in computer science, than there were men, and then the PCs were marketed to men, and then it kind of fluctuated the other way, and now there's some force that's doing this. I don't even necessarily agree that we should force women into STEM. Like,
I'm
that's
not talking
an
about genetics when I say natural. I'm saying that they, as an individual, before we put our finger on the scale as an institution, let's say that you are a college, you are trying to decide how you're going to do one policy or another. If you keep finding that as you enact this policy this way, that it is netting loss, it's inefficient, it's not doing what the people want to do something else, at what point is that no longer like, oh, good because it's progressive, and it's bad because it's actually like stopping people from going in the direction they want?
I see what you're saying. That's a really good question, and a very, very complicated, because you could make this for a lot of things about like historical injustices. Like, hey, when do we stop affirmative action? When do we stop promoting female only scholarships? Like, I don't know when suddenly everything's equal. Yeah, I don't know when suddenly everything's equal, but it's like it hasn't been for a very long time, and it's hard to say like, well, all right, like we're not going to treat you differently as much now. Oh, actually we do, but like we're not going to put laws on the books that do it. But fuck it, everyone's at the starting line, even though these people have been like inheriting generational wealth for years and years and years, and they're way ahead of you. Get fucked, right? Like, I don't know what the exact line is, but that's a very good question. I'm not going to pretend like that has an easy answer though.
But you're talking about
evidence of that
how
with
far the thing
Non-Von
goes.
wanted to talk.
But I am
Wait,
explaining.
wait.
Hold on, Non-Von wants to talk, and Non-Von hasn't talked. So go ahead, Non-Von.
Crazy. I was just curious, Tuna, do we think there's evidence of that with women in STEM? My understanding is that their test scores in a lot of STEM subjects are like better than men. They seem to be.
Oh, I'm not
doing
talking about
better than men.
performance. I'm not saying that women are worse. I'm saying
Desire. Like,
Yeah, desire.
The
I'm
biggest
talking about,
gender
like, the-
difference between men and women is that women prefer to deal with people more than to deal with things, right?
I don't think
And
anyone
men
contests
prefer
that.
to deal with
I
things.
contest that.
Oh, you do? Oh,
No,
I
no,
mean,
you guys.
women
Okay,
are.
do
That's
not
like
you won't disagree
established
with
social
Fabian.
science. Like,
Well,
You
yeah,
will
but
not disagree with
asked question is
Fabian.
why. I
I'm not even
understand,
talking
and that
about
is
why.
empirically true. You're right, Fabian. It is true that if you like surveyed them, that is true. But the question is why? Why did it come here? So now you're the guy
Right,
who's
but
like,
what I'm
hey, this
saying is
fence is here, and I'm
when
saying, why is
you
the fence
have-
here?
No, what I'm saying is that when you have societies and cultures that try and be more egalitarian and be more gender neutral, what you find, right, in like the Nordic countries, you find a larger gender disparity in that, not less. And you have societies where they enforce gender roles a lot, you find the exact opposite. So Rwanda,
Right, but I'm
for
not saying that's
example,
bad,
has
right?
some of the highest rates of women in STEM because of the exact. Right, but what I'm saying is that when you have cultural institutions and individuals that are arguing that we ought to do away with gender roles, and that becomes a part of the culture, and then you have that pushed in media, and you have that pushed in academia, and you have government programs that try and stop these disparities, et cetera. You spend time and resources and institutional human capital so that you can try and undo gender disparities, and so that you can try and undo the concept of gender roles. What you find is a cultural backlash against that, where the gender roles reassert themselves,
but this is
and then
the
you have a
issue.
But I'm not
conflict
arguing for
between
that.
these
I'm
two
just
things.
saying on a personal level, if you want to talk about what should we do as a society, yeah, maybe that is a bad thing, and that's a perfectly fine argument. I'm just not talking about, hey, like, let's fucking dump a bunch of money into telling people, not, all right, you're just gone, you don't care. Okay.
No, he's got
Yeah, but
wireless. He's
I-
not like Wick. He can hear you.
Oh, you can still hear me. Okay.
Yeah, unlike Wick, I had fucking wireless headphones.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, we need to abolish these. We need to push this in society. I'm just saying, hey, don't enforce it the way we've enforcing it. The way this happens, for the most part, yeah, it's in movies, yeah, it's in institutions, yeah, it's in colleges, yeah, it's in all this, but it's also from you and your kids and who you talk to in your community. And I'm just saying you don't need to gender that, and you don't need to gatekeep gender. Like,
Okay.
it's stupid.
Okay. It's like 8:15, guys. I promised you guys 2 hours. I know we could go on for hours and hours and hours and hours. There's a lot to talk that we didn't get to talk about. There's a lot of things that we got stuck on. I get it, right? I get it. We will have this conversation again. I am certain. But for now, we must be done. So, gang, if you, for whatever reason, if you enjoyed this content, and I'm not sure why you would, please hit
Mercy.
the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Yeah, okay. Yeah. We got some great content coming up next week. The same time, bad time, same bad channel. Thursday, the 16th, we're gonna have Not So Erudite on. We're gonna have Sad Kit Kat on. We're gonna have Kerbafine, I don't know how to say her name, and one more lovely lady on to discuss this same topic, basically what it means to be a woman in modern society. What's it like being a woman online, right? What unique struggles that they face, and I pray to God it goes better than this one did. I'm going to make sacrifices to the dark gods tonight so that this goes better then. But no, I hope you guys enjoy it. We're also going to be talking about we're going to have a debate on whether or not socialized healthcare should provide sex workers to men who struggle. And we're also going to have a debate on the recent changes in Facebook on their moderation team, which I find the most exciting of all the things we're going to do and we're going to talk about. And so we're going to have a discussion on that. They are moving away from a fact check system to a more community notes-based system. What does that mean, right? Is that better? Is that worse? We're going to talk about it. It's going to be great. We're going to all these lovely individuals are going to give their closing statements. All the links to these lovely individuals are in the YouTube description. You can click on their link and follow them if you like. And please do so. They have taken time out of their day to come. I will only say this in closing, and then they can have their closings. We, as a society, do not enforce gender roles, especially what it means to be a man, as we used to. There are positives to this, but there are also negatives. One of the negatives is that it seems to be that men want this. Men want to be more manly. Men want to be more of a man. And the only people who are giving them any answers on how to be a man and not just a good person are people like Andrew Tate. And that needs to change because we cannot have them monopolize this field. We have to have an answer, not how to be a good person, They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, how do I be a better man? And we have to give the people what they want and what the market demands. So please do that. We're going to start with Cersei. We're going to end with Soy Pill. That's the order we're going to go in. Cersei, go ahead.
I mean, I think there's a lot to be said, but I'll keep it brief. I think one of the most important things about being a man is maintaining many different important virtues, such as patience and temperance, such as maintaining honor, such as if you give your word, you're trustworthy, you adhere to the things you believe, you have that personal integrity. Those are just as the basis. To give credit to Soy, I imagine you could say the exact same thing to a young lady. But I think as a male, there are important aspects, and that physicality and your ability to express yourself with your physicality is also very important, and why your virtue needs to be attached to that, or at least part of it needs to be attached to that, such as you have the power to fight and break someone's neck, but you also have the power to be a construction worker and to build things for people. I do think that the aspect of being male is important to the code of conduct. And perhaps maybe the issue is that we use the term real man as the title of code of conduct, but I do believe a code of conduct should exist. And so I think that's where I would disagree with Soy, but I do understand his greater points, because I do see a lot of manipulation being used when people are addressing males by removing their man card and besmirching them or putting them down. So I think that there does need to be a code of conduct, and to start with, maintaining personal integrity is treating people well, being kind to them, having temperance and peace are important ways to start. And then from there, we could go deeper. But those are my thoughts.
Thank you for being here. Check them out, gang. Links in the description. Chip, go ahead.
Yeah, being a man is about being the executive animal, is about being the sort of precursor to the future, builder of the future, experimenter of the future. Being a man is about taking advantage of the unique opportunities you have based on what you are not on all levels, whether or not it is female, a child, animal, and trying to actualize your potential and mediate that different, like the simultaneous fact that you are an individual with a life, but that you also exist inside of a context and are taken as an other by others. And it's constantly changing, and it's good, and it is not something that can be defined in a single moment, but it's forever. But it is constantly important to know and feel out individually what it is in the moment. Right now, it's going to be different for everybody, relatively speaking. But I do think that, as said, strength, intellect, adaptability, reliability, all these things that are often considered virtues, they come in and out of importance, and it's more important than anything to be the person, the executive, who looks at the moment and recognizes which things need to be actualized, which things need to be reined in. It's my summary.
Thank you for being here. And I'll read the super chats at the end, don't worry. And thank you for the membership, Kay. Really appreciate you. But thanks. Check them out, gang. Tuna Chip, links in description. Non-Fawn. Hi. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's I do think that it's beneficial for society to enforce some standards or have some high or some expectations for men that are different than expectations for women. But overall, I do think it's unfair and probably not good to have like some rigid definition of what it means to be a man or a real man. So I would agree with Soy there. If you want to see what else I have to say, you go to my YouTube channel, Non-Fawn, or I stream on Twitch, Non-Fawn420. Usually I'm more econ focused than culture war stuff. So
fair enough. No, gang, check him out. I like Non-Fawn. He's a good guy. We're gonna help him grow up right. Okay, he's young. We're gonna help raise him right, and we're gonna teach him what it is to be a real man, and that is important. And I think you should learn how to. I'm not saying that you're not, right? I'm just saying that I could be more of a man, right? Everyone could improve. So thank you, Non-Fawn. Give him a follow. Fabian, please.
Yeah, so just summarizing kind of what I was hoping people would be able to talk about to a certain degree. I do think that there is a struggle to understand what you ought to do as a man in society, especially in kind of the Western context in these last few years. And there's a number of factors from, the labor market, from social media, from, academia and cultural institutions. And again, I brought up that conflict between, the swing back of pushed egalitarianism or kind of enforced egalitarianism and like the pendulum swinging to the other side and this conflict between that. But overall, even setting those things aside in the general context, I've developed a sociological theory that I usually call cultural cost theory, which is a blend of structural functionalism, open systems theory, and some elements of all, I took to heart C. Wright Mills, right? The sociological lens. But I think, it's important to recognize that when we engage with a new culture, with a new group of people, with society, etc., that we as humans have different values and we have different skill sets, and our values are subjective, and so they're ordered differently. And when you choose to be an outlier, when you choose to set yourself out, it is in order for a system, a society, a business, whatever, to be functional and to be able to resist change and maintain structure, it has to gatekeep that which is different. It is necessary for a system to remain stable, to not change to every influence that could potentially change the system. And a system that is overly, gatekeeping, overly, rigid to its tradition, is incapable of changing as the material, technological, cultural things change. And so every system, every institution has to find this balance, this cultural cost. So when you as a man choose to eschew what is traditional, when you as a man choose to eschew what is being done outside of what everyone expects of you, you should expect pushback on that. You should expect derision, and you should look at that and say, do I value what I'm doing to such a degree that it's worth that and worth it to prove that? And so I think that's really what it means to be a man, is to recognize the ways in which you're different and you challenge everyone else. That comes with a cost, and that cost should be there. And if you are successful in proving that your difference is superior, that you ought then fight for those changes within that system. And that is kind of the interplay between culture, gender roles, and individuals and how they engage with institutions. So challenge the system, be different, but recognize that difference comes with pushback, and that's a necessary condition for the survival of our species, is that pushback to you being different. And don't hate that, but examine, is it worth it? Should you conform to a certain degree because what you're doing is stupid, or should you fight for it because you know that there's value in it, and then work within those systems? That's what I would say men ought to do.
Thank you for being here, Fabian. Check him out, gang. Links in the description. Click that link, and if you want to find him, you can find him. I'll read this super chat now because it's addressed at you, Fabian. You probably have to go. $10 from Psychonaut. Fabian, you got to be able to make your points more precise and palatable to the layman, because you make great points, but they are overly bloated. Thank you for $10. Last, but certainly not least.
Twitch poll needs nerds too.
Not non-fun. Fuck. Soy pill, please.
Yeah. Cersei, I was pleasantly surprised with how much we agreed after having watched your videos, so thanks for that. Non-Fawn, you're a little sniper. You don't shoot much, but when you do, it is spot on. We talked a lot. We talked past each other a lot. Ultimately, my point is, being a man is an arbitrary definition, and trying to put a rigid definition on this is harmful to people. We shouldn't gatekeep gender. We shouldn't let people attach their self-worth to this nebulous concept of gender. We should treat everyone the same, not necessarily within the context of society. Yeah, we should acknowledge gender is a social construct, but it's real. It exists. We have to operate with that gender social construct moving forward. But we can do better. We can tell people to be good without gatekeeping. But if you have to operate within your gender roles, let it be known, I'm the soy pill. I am the largest man on this panel. I could bench every other man. I'm the manliest man, so I am objectively the winner under your framework. Thank you all. Check out my YouTube.
Check him out, gang. Links in the description, please. Gang, again, like and subscribe if you want. We're not going to end the show after this. I am going to talk a little bit about the fires, but to these lovely individuals, we wave bye-bye. Bye-bye, lovely individuals. Bye.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Are they gone? Are they gone? Okay. That was a shit show, gang. I'm just gonna say it. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the show. I wanted to talk about I wanted the discussion to go down certain routes, right? That I wanted to discuss, like, personal experiences with being a man. Like, how have you become a man, right? Like, what makes you a man, right? How have you contended with the societal roles that have been thrust upon you? And they all wanted to be hoity-toity intellectually about it, which is fine. Not what I wanted. That's all, okay? It's just a difference in expectation, and it caused tension, which frustrated me. And so here we are. I think that, like, there is a value in talking about this in a more intellectual capacity, but I do think that men need to see other men being vulnerable, being personal, and talking about their personal experiences and interactions with what it means to have with manhood, frankly. With manhood, frankly, okay? What? Hold on, I have to ban someone in the YouTube chat. I don't like to do this, but I'm just gonna remove this guy. I don't know what he is. Boom. Okay, I think he's gone. Okay, sorry about that. Had to deal with it. Yeah, it's one of those things. I think that we need to understand that men want a role. And again, I don't think that the gender roles as they exist are perfect. Absolutely not. I don't think we can't change them. Absolutely not. But we need something. What we're giving them is nothing. Men are getting nothing from society. They're getting scorn if they ask for anything. They're saying it. People are telling them it is wrong to want a gender role. Institutions are telling them this. This is how they are being treated. And no, it's not universal. It's not all, but it's enough that we are having a problem because we lack a real role for men. This role is being dictated to them by people like Andrew Tate. And this is with like people like Sneeko and things like that. And this is a problem. It really is, because I don't want a child to grow up thinking how to be a man is to be like Sneeko or be like Andrew Tate. We need better role models. We need better exemplars. We need better teachers. We need better fathers. We need better men, right? And part of being a better man is being able to raise up other men, to teach them, to train them, to give them help. And they need help. They're screaming for help. They want to know, what do I do to fulfill my purpose? Where is my purpose? What should I be? What should I be? And we're just telling, I'll just be a good person. It doesn't matter. And it's not working. It's not. And this insistence that it is, because it's politically uncomfortable to just acknowledge reality that this isn't working, right? We need to address it. $10 from Psychonaut. It's not just that. It's what when men do the things that the prevailing culture tells them to do, they are rewarded for it. They aren't rewarded for it. Okay, fair enough. I was like, no, but no, when the aren't, I read it wrong. My bad. Taking accountability is part of being a man. They aren't rewarded for it. Absolutely, right? The society, right, wants to tell men to do certain things, which is not bad or good. It's neutral, right? I think that, again, I'm not saying we should go back to the 50s or the 60s or something of what a man means. I think we have an opportunity to do away with a lot of the baggage that what it meant to be a man was in the 50s, right? We can change it. We absolutely can. We just need to pick something, right? We as a culture, as a society, and I know this is much easier said than done, need to pick something. And we need to work on that something. And then when men behave in a way that exemplifies what society is telling them to behave in, we do have to reward them. And I hear a lot of people say things like, oh, well, you can't just give them head pats for just doing what they should do anyway. No, give them head pats for doing what they should do. Even like, oh, you want to give them a medal for just being a normal human? Yes. Yes, I do. Unironically. Yes, I do. I think that they should be rewarded, that they should be honored, that they should be pedestaled for behaving in a way we consider normal, right? Even just doing the normal things, just doing the bare minimum. Yes, reward them because it trains them to do it more. Yes, absolutely. They should feel special that they haven't engaged in bad behavior. That should be a point of pride. Yes. Yes. Again, this is not to say that there is any trait that is exclusive. What I am saying is that as a society, we need to answer the question, what is manhood? And that answer cannot be, it doesn't matter. It absolutely does. I do care what the answer is, but I'm flexible here, okay? I can accept a few different answers that I think would be acceptable, right? And we can work within, get rid of some of the more toxic things that we don't like. That's fine, but we need something. Because kid not kin, you keep saying this, it just makes you feel bad. When people feel bad, they look to feel good. And they go to people who make them feel good, such as Andrew Tate. So it just makes you feel bad. I would take out the just out of that, because when something makes people feel bad, they act on that input that they have in their life, okay? If it makes you feel bad, you look to make it not feel bad anymore, and you look to correct that feeling. That's just how reinforcement works, right? When something feels good, you want more of it. When something feels bad, you want less of it. And so when you have a system that is making young men feel bad and making people feel bad, it causes them to engage in what I would consider bad actions, because they are looking to the people who are telling them what they can do to feel good, and those people happen to be people like Andrew Tate. I want to replace those people with people such as, dare I say, me, who will tell them to do good things, protect, train, educate, provide. And those are good things. Those are positive things. We can make into an archetype. We can make the man, the myth, the legend into an archetype, one that we want men to emulate. And we want an exemplar. Okay? Someone people strive to be. And too many are striving to be Andrew Tate. And that's a problem. Okay, forest fires. Speaking of, and this kind of ties in, I saw a tweet that, you guys know what's happening in Los Angeles, right? Or is everyone aware? If not, turn on the news. I don't know what to tell you. Los Angeles is on fire right now. And if you were watching me and you're in the area, stay safe. Obey the evacuation orders if you get evacuation orders. Stay safe. Listen to the authorities, things like that. Don't put yourself at risk. You are more important than your property. Do what you need, right? You do what you need. But there's been one of the things you see, right, is a lot of people have discourse about this. And I'm not from California. I don't know the situation there, right? I don't know how it's been handled. And there's too much noise to really give a take on Did any kind of institution over there fail? I don't know yet, and we will find out eventually. But what we won't find out is by listening to the noise that's currently out there. So I'm reserving judgment for now. However, I did see a take that I wanted to discuss because it plays into this concept of manliness, okay, of manhood and things like that. And it plays into the tension between society, right? What society values, and what, or at least what certain parts of society value, and what like the more traditional values here. And I want to show you guys this tweet. I would read it out, and I want to kind of like go through kind of discuss it just for a little bit because I gotta get it off my chest. Okay, you guys ready? Okay, so Keith Wasserman, I think that's how you say his name. I'll make it a little bigger for you, lovely gentlemen and ladies that happen to be here. Again, does anyone have access to private firefighters to protect our home in Pacific Palisades? Need to act fast here. All the neighbors' houses are burning. We'll pay any amount. Thank you. Okay. This guy, and again, there's like 207,000 likes on this, right? Has been getting dragged all day. And this is only one of many quote tweets I've seen saying the disconnect is jaw-dropping. Just wow. Keith did nothing wrong. Keith has done nothing wrong. Keith's house is on fire. Keith wants his house not to be on fire. Keith is saying, please help me. My house is on fire. I will pay you to put it out. Please help me. And people are like, privileged much? Oh my God, privileged much? I want everyone who's saying that to shut the fuck up right now. This man's house is on fire. Yes, he wants to put it out. He's asking for help. And yes, private firefighters is a weird concept. And I don't know if they even exist in California. I have no idea. But he's screaming for help. He's screaming, help me, my house is on fire. And you have these motherfuckers going around saying, don't you know how many other people's houses on fire? Why are you so privileged right now to prioritize your house? Because it's his house! Because it's his house! And it's on fire! Oh my God! Don't scold the man! His house is on fire! He's trying to put it out! Stop scolding him! Stop it! Stop it! I am so angry. I'm so angry at you motherfuckers. Right? Everyone's scolding this motherfucker because his house is on fire and he's trying to put it out. And you guys are trying to make this into this, like, weird woke scold bullshit while he's trying to put it. He's like, help me. My house is on fire. I will do anything to not be it on fire anymore. And you're like, what about all the other people who are on fire? If we have to burn, you have to burn too, is basically a lot of what people say. If we have to burn, you have to burn too. And a lot of people saying it aren't even in Los Angeles right now, okay, to be frank. This crab bucket mentality. If we have to burn, you have to burn too. We don't care that you may have resources that you could fix the problem for you. If you do it, privileged much. Yes, and that's good that he's privileged. And I'm telling you right now, if my house is on fire, my neighborhood is on fire, and I have money to put my house out, like for some reason we have private firefighters now. I don't know why that's a thing, right? But if someone's like, hey, if you give me $100, I'll put your house out. I'll fight the fire in your house. I'll be like, I'll be handing out the money I can to save my house. Yes, everyone would do that. It's not bad. It's okay to do. It's okay. You don't have to starve because everyone around you is starving. You don't have to burn because everything around you is and everyone else around you is burning. You don't. You really don't. AKA Batozai says, Wick, I could hear you yelling in my headset from across the room. I must have missed something. Yes, you missed me being one. I am enraged at this mindset. And again, people are saying, well, it's just Twitter. No, I have seen this mindset in real life, right? Twitter is informed by real life. And it also informs real life. There is a cyclical relationship between these things, right? People who actually exist go on Twitter, they make takes, and that informs and influences how people see the world. And those same people will then make more takes on Twitter, which again informs and influences. That's why there's a lot of talk about things like banning TikTok, because we recognize that social media influences the world. It has a very, very large influence. Some might say overly large influence on the world around us. It influences how people make decisions. It influences how people view the world around them. It influences how the decisions they make based on the world around them, right? Like, it informs them in a very real way. Now, whether it should or not isn't the question. It does. It does. And so when I see things like that, and again, this is simply giving a megaphone to a take that already exists in a lot of instances. If I can't have it, you can't have it too. If I can't have it, you can't. If I have to suffer, you have to suffer too. And I see this take so often in so many aspects of life, and it bothers me. It bothers me. It does. It upsets me. Okay. Mary says, didn't the mafia do that in private firefighting? I'm not sure. They might have. I don't know. And again, it's not about the private firefighter part. The guy's trying to save his house, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to save it. And he thought of private firefighters for whatever reason, whether they exist or not, I'm not sure, right? And he's like, please help me, my house is on fire. And people are just dragging him through the mud over and over again, and it's a problem. Mary says, maybe I'm confusing that for them setting businesses on fire. Protection money, gang, that's how it works, right? Kid Not Kin says, I'm on Pornhub all the time, and I'm positive every woman is like that. Again, women, the pornification of sex in modern society is a problem. Yes. Men and women both watch these things. They think that's how they have to act, and they act accordingly. It's a problem. It influences real life. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, that's the same with Twitter. They see it on Twitter, it informs how they act, and thus it influences real life. It is real life. Yes, oh, you got it. You got it. Good job. Twitter, just like pornography, just like Pornhub, just like TikTok, just like Fox News, just like CNN, just like MSNBC, just like the World Health Organization, just like all sorts of institutions, influence real life. Thus, it is real life. You can predict what will happen in the future because of what you see on Twitter. This is the takes that people are making. This is the mindset that people are having, and you can make predictions based on that are accurate to a certain degree. It's just true. Okay. But yes, overall, I don't know. And this is also what I want to touch on, okay? There's one more thing I wanted to touch on around this, which again is a problem. And I'll just read the tweet I made on this, okay? Because I think that this should be an evergreen tweet. We should be using this like the firebomb the Walmart thing. But this is early in the year. You can copy and paste it. I'll give you full permission. You don't have to credit me. You can just say this, right? And because this is what I've seen all day on Twitter, right? And yesterday as well. I'd just like to take this opportunity to blame the latest catastrophe on my political opponents. They have either done something to cause it or failed to do something to stop it because they are evil and everything is their fault. Things that have caused the LA fires. The Jews. Okay, I've seen a lot of that. Right? How is the LA fires in Gaza, Palestine connected? Click to find out. Right? Tons of takes on that. Ukraine. oh, instead of sending the money to Ukraine, we should have sent the money to LA to fight the fires, as if LA were going to fight the fires with artillery shells, right? The Republicans, well, if the Republicans just believed in climate change more, we would have better policies in order to fight the fires. This one might be accurate, but you know what I mean? Like, they don't have the information yet to know, and they're just making these takes. The Democrats, this is a big one I've seen, like, oh, the Democrats are in charge of California, therefore they failed at their job. And again, maybe, but I don't have the facts in order to say whether or not they are, and neither do 99% of the people making these takes. It's just true, right? So again, we're going to keep seeing this. We are going to keep seeing this every day, right? For the entirety of the year. They are going to use the opportunities of all these, any catastrophe, anytime a world event happens, whether that be a shooting, whether that be a natural disaster, hurricane, flood, fire, etc., any kind of war, any kind of conflict, they will find a way to pin it on their political enemies, whether or not that makes sense to do or not. So please, I beg of you, everyone, take a minute, take a beat. And look, I'm guilty of this too. It happens, okay? But just take a beat. Not everything is caused by Trump. Not every bad thing in the world that's going to happen the next 4 years is going to be Trump's fault. It's not. Not everything that happened in the next 4 years is going to be Biden's fault. It's not. Not everything that happens in the next 4 years is going to be Israel's fault. It's not. Not everything happens in the next 4 years is going to be Iran's fault or China's fault or the Ukraine's fault or Russia's fault or any of these things, right? And it's tempting. It's very, very tempting because you have a pet cause that you really, really believe in, that you really, really support, that you really, really want people to care about. And so you try to tie every single thing, every event as a way to remind people of your political pet cause that you really, 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 really super care about, and it's super, 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 super duper important, right? So you will take every single event that ever happens and try to tie it to your political pet cause and say, well, it's all about this, because that way my political pet cause is super duper important, can get all the funding it needs, all the attention it needs, and we can get that done. That's just not the way the world works. It's not how these things work, and we need to stop doing it. Okay. Did you guys have fun? I hope you did. Okay. Let's right into Prime Kai. I want you to say hi to him. It's the Australians' fault. Fair enough. You know what? It's women's fault. It's men's fault. It's whatever, right? The man, the bear, the pig. I don't know. Okay. I love you guys. I might stream tomorrow. If I do, it's going to be just call-ins. Monday or Tuesday, we're going to talk about the changes to moderation on Facebook and Meta, and we're going to go into depth on that. Then Wednesday, we're going to have the sex worker debate. Someone contacted me and said that that's what they wanted to debate, so here we are. And then on Thursday, we're going to have the women panel, which hopefully goes better to today's. You know, Mary, and if you'll indulge me, because Mary, you've blocked me on everything for whatever reason. I don't think you meant to, because you're here and talking. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but okay. You're saying no, but I promise you, because I've tried to DM you. I tried to DM you about the women panel, and I couldn't. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later, and I'll see you sometime. Bye.